Hello.
There we go.
All right.
Hi, Simon.
Hello.
Good
Oh,
greetings, salutations, felicitations, all sorts of things.
it's been a really busy day tonight, and I'm just sorry we didn't get the announcements out sooner. Like it was just like very last minute, even more last minute than usual. So
I
but
had
we're
to
here.
show up and say, "Are we doing a show today? I don't see anything on the screen about it. What the heck is happening?" And Simon says, "I'm typing as fast as I can. I'm even strong typing and sound typing. I'm doing them all."
No, it's this null safety typing. Right? Yeah. Right. All right.
Yes,
So
yes,
we'll get through the introduction as quick as possible. We can get to your questions, and we can do some live coding, and we'll have an awesome show. That's the plan.
yes. Yeah, that's
Yo,
always the plan, and
Randall.
most of the time it comes out true. Yes. Oh, yeah. Wait, I'm starting some questions. You're holding. Okay. Yes, we have some do's and don'ts. Please be nice and respectful and constructive, and treat everybody as you'd like to be treated yourself. Do not post anything adult or rude or offensive. Adult content, I should say. Don't advertise or promote anything. You do not get to promote things unless you're on screen. Then you can promote it all you want, like we will. So don't do that unless we invite you on. Do not spam. Don't post the same thing again and again. In particular, don't post a question and then post the same question 20 minutes later, because I have a queue of questions. And if you post it again, I put you at the bottom of the queue instead of the top of the queue. So just be patient. We will get to them. We see them all. Don't harass anybody. We do not tolerate that at all. We do have a ban hammers here, and you will be forcefully booted. So be careful about that. And there's something that's right behind where it says "End your question." There we go. Oh yeah, it was hidden behind a banner. I couldn't read number 6. Number 6 is "Do have a good time," which is always appropriate for the show.
You have
We
to
have a
read
good
it.
time doing the show.
How many times have we done this?
I not as often as Scott. Scott does it more.
All right,
I'm just going along for the ride, guys. That's it.
I'll give you that one. So,
Okay.
Yeah, welcome to the show, everyone. If you've not been here, welcome.
Yes. Who are you?
Yes, quick introductions. My name is Simon Lightfoot, a Flutter community lead, CTO at Dev Angels London, and you can find me on Twitter at Dev Angels London. Scott will be joining us later, so you can see him then. Randall, please introduce yourself.
I'm Randall Schwartz. I am a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert. Been that for about 5 years, since the beginning of the program for Dart and Flutter for GDEs. And I'm also very active in the community, answering questions for everybody, making things really cool for y'all out there. So if you probably see me on Discord or Stack Overflow or Reddit answering your questions, I do that all the time. So for this show, I am the question magician, which means that I am watching the chat, looking for you to put Q : in front of your question, and that will flag it as something that we need to answer. So be sure to put Q in there, or else we just think it's you chatting amongst yourselves.
I'm having to play around my lights here just because I'm just change the colors.
You are so distracted.
I was just thinking, like, do I want to go retro? Look, it's like I'm from.
Oh yeah. It needs to have some spinny stuff at the edges, though. If you're
why
going
is
to do
the
that.
blue like always the one that kind of shows up?
I don't know.
No, that one works, doesn't it?
I don't know.
Bit of a side
Do we have any other guests today? We have another.
Oh yeah, I guess we have some guests. I guess we should just hey John, sorry for that.
It's all right. I'm just hanging out backstage.
Yeah.
In the green room.
Introduce yourself. Yeah. Who are you, John? Say something.
I am. So John Wheezy. I hang out on occasion. I spend lots of time with Randall over in Discord answering questions, and I manage the Medium for the Flutter community. So cool. Yeah, we get a few more in the queue there. We'll get some more published here pretty soon.
More queues.
Okay, yes. As people are already saying in the chat, yes, it is in fact my birthday. I announced
that
last week.
Yes,
it's going to be my birthday, and it is my birthday. 62. It's not a power of 2 yet. It's getting there. Be really close. I got a couple more to go before my next power of 2. So just a couple more, right?
So what should we do? So what do you do on the 64th? When you're 64? Do you?
I sing when I'm 64. Oh, now we're gonna get a copyright strike.
No, can't do that.
He spends twice as long at karaoke on Tuesday night. That's what he does.
Yeah. Tuesday night, I did my karaoke last night, right up until the time I had to rush home so that I could get at least a little bit of sleep. I got 5 hours of sleep this morning, so I should be okay for a little while. And I've got a busy day planned. I got to stop by a couple of my regular hangouts here, and they're going to celebrate with me for my 62nd birthday.
Right.
So, yay!
Nice.
Sounds fun.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We need something like the was it the confetti things from Flutter?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we got some questions coming up here. Do you want to start into the questions? You want to start live coding, or
I actually said so. I noticed that people talking about the music at the very beginning, like this is the first time maybe if you've been here and listened to the music. That music, I'm going to give everyone a challenge. That music was created by someone called Jeremy Soda, who's actually that's a pseudonym for someone from the community. And then leave it there. You can go figure it out. See if you can figure out who Jeremy Soda is. Anyway,
interesting. Cool.
But yeah, no, it was made just for us. It's the only place you'll hear that tune. It was made for Flutter community with great, which I to be fair, I don't credit Jeremy all the time. So thank you very much, Jeremy, for your contribution to the community.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Shall we get into questions?
Yeah, just jump straight in. Why not?
Right. So let's take the first one here from Rap. I keep reading and hearing that inherited widget will notify dependents and descendants that they need to update, but I'm not seeing that happen. Can we go over that? Maybe that's some live coding, huh?
Yeah.
I think
live code.
I think we could do that.
Right?
Yeah, we did that. I did do actually some of this in the WoW shopping app. So let me see if I can bring that up. In the meantime, should we just answer some other short questions while you're getting prepared?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Of course, this is probably a question that's going to require live coding as well. How to implement page view vertical with scrollable children. The old scrolling within scrolling problem, right?
Yeah.
Simon is distracted.
How to implement page view vertical.
Page view.
Well, now I was just like trying to get the setup going here. Well, I missed.
You know what? While he's bringing that up, do we want to skip this one and save it for later? And there's a number of comments about our buddy Hixie that we can
so we should probably we can move forward to that stuff.
So let me just answer this one. The answer is you need to give it a fixed time, right? So for example, Turth, if you want your page view to take the height of the outside widget that the scrollable is in, you put a layout builder outside, you pass your constraints in, and you wrap your page view in a size box with the constraints max width and max height, right? So now it's going to fill up the viewport of the scrollable, but then you can scroll it vertically in that way and horizontally on the other way. But yeah, it doesn't know how because all scrollable content is unbounded in height on purpose, right? Because it can be infinite in size. So you need to specify that you want the height to be fixed. And we can try that out in a minute if you want to. Leave the question in the queue, Randall. We'll just make our way down and then we'll come back to that.
Okay. What's your take on reactive programming patterns currently being ported to Flutter and Dart, like signals?
Yay.
More the merrier, I guess.
I mean,
if you like it, great. Yeah.
Doesn't make any difference to. I mean, I've not used them, so the problem here is because I've not used them, I can't really give a good. Like if I thought signals was great on React, then I might be like, oh yeah, brilliant. This has come to Flutter, right? But since I've never used it, I can't really.
Yeah, I think if it's something you've used and you like it, then yeah, it's great.
Yeah, exactly.
People are porting stuff over. Yeah.
Cool. All right, next. Will the new Flutter 3.16 navigation bar replace bottom navigation bar, and does it bring improvements? I haven't played with it yet. I don't know.
I've looked at it, but I don't know that it is.
I didn't know there was a new one.
Yeah, there's a new one. Yeah. Actually, somebody was asking about it just the other day in Discord.
Is that the part of the
so it's called navigation bar. It must be part of the Flutter 3 then.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's have a quick look.
This is usually where Simon pulls up the API documentation and we take a look together.
Exactly.
Yep.
Apparently, there's a YouTube video. Wait, when was that made? 11 months ago.
Wow.
So navigation bar has been. Oh, hang a minute. Is this the?
Do you want to share?
I will. Yeah, sorry.
We're watching Simon watch a screen. That is so
Yeah.
fascinating.
Right. Where's the button? I need the button. Yeah.
Share and share alike.
Yes, this one.
I think Simon spends a week and forgets entirely how the show runs.
No, I'm trying to no, I don't want to do that. Hang on. Shush.
We're just giving you a hard time. It's all
Yeah.
good.
There we go.
Yeah.
There it is.
See, so navigation bar, Material 3 navigation bar component. That's interesting. So does not adjust with visual density, but does not adjust the size for text scanner. Yeah, because there's certain things that you do and don't want to scale, which is nice. Navigation destination.
Yep.
Okay. So, but this is a widget itself.
Right.
Okay, so this is just the icon and like the tooltip and label and whatever to show. This is quite nice.
Each of your buttons.
Yeah, because one of the big problems with bottom navigation bar from Material 2, the latest implementation of Flutter, was that you were just limited to icon and label. You couldn't put any widget down there. You couldn't put an overlay with like a notification icon.
Mike says, navigation bar's been around for years.
I thought,
part of M3 when they announced M3.
Yeah,
it's because M3 is default now that people are noticing this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did actually recognize it from before. I just never bothered using it because I don't actually use the material widgets for those things anyway, right? I think it's mainly because it does solve the problem. So as I said before, like if you want, let's say you had a messages icon or messages section, and you wanted to have like a little notification icon on top. So then you would normally do that with like a stack, right? So you just wrap your button in a stack, put your navigation icon on top, or make a widget that wraps it and says navigation notification icon or something, right?
Yep.
Boom, done. The problem here is in the bottom navigation bar. If we go, maybe we'll find that. Bottom navigation bar, this is the Material 2 one. The objects that you provide for the items, where's the... Sorry, remember, it's bottom navigation bar item, which is a model object, right? So this is not a widget. So which meant that you couldn't do that lovely nested widget wrapping when you wanted to. So it's nice that navigation destination is just a widget. I assume then that navigation bar itself, look, any widget.
It just takes a list of destinations,
Yeah, and the destination does not have to be does not have to be a navigation destination.
No, it could be any widget,
It says it must be a list of 2 or more navigation destination values. I wonder if it actually... I can't see that because it's just widget, right? So maybe they do a detection. Maybe if they do internal for like, if it's this type and then doing something. I don't...
Look at this.
I'm trying to understand like when they would actually... we could have a look in a minute, right? Maybe just give it a go. I haven't actually played around with it much. Do we actually have an example here we can run? There you go. So, okay. Well, look, here's an interest. Look, they've already got icons here.
Yeah,
so
samples,
there you go. Look, container, decoration, border radius. No, that's the... Wait, what?
No, further up. I think it's further up. Yeah, right there. Destinations.
There you go. Look, badge. And... Badge lip. Amy, is badge an inbuilt widget? Have I missed this one?
Oh no!
Oh look, it is. Wow.
Is it
I always just make my own.
This
is great. Look at this. Give a small amount of information. I wonder if this actually like.
And that's not Material 3 either. That's been around.
They secretly watch your gist. Simon, they go into your gists and they figure out what Simon keeps using over and over again, and then add that to the core. I'm sure that's what home team is doing.
I need to submit a fix for this then, because the problem I see here is there's no max. I feel like so what you normally see on a lot of these badges is like a maximum count. So if it goes above, if you have a maximum set and it goes above it, it says like 99 plus, right? Like to show that there's more than 99, but we can't.
Well, maybe it does if you give it more than 3 digits, because it's saying that the count constructor only takes up to 3 digits.
I'm dubious about that one, because the thing is, but what happens
if the count is greater than the label is 999 plus?
Yeah, but what happens if I want 99?
Well,
like 999.
Yeah, if you want to change it, yeah.
Right. This is the thing that get like. Oh look. Oh really? That's how you do it.
Hey, that's an easy way.
I mean, it works, right? Like I can't
yeah.
complain. But there you go. So if you want to do 99, then you just change the label. You just change the label parameter to the normal badge constructor to be 99 plus. Then, right? You just have to wrap a bit, right? So it works.
Yeah.
All right, that's cool.
Close enough.
So yeah, so I honestly, that's pretty cool, right? Anyway, right, moving on. Yeah, and at the top, if anyone wants to go, there's a widget of the week video which you can watch. But anyway, that's it there.
I think we got somebody backstage who wants to come in.
Oh,
have we? Who's
who
that?
showed up? Oh,
what made you think that I wanted to come in?
All right, bye.
I don't know. Maybe the fact
it's good to see you for that split second, Scott.
Hey,
Yeah.
yeah. Hi, bye. Yes, I would like fries with that.
Wait. Next
Do we
point.
have somebody else? Oh, yeah. That's what we were talking about.
Scott's
I didn't know he left.
me.
What?
Yeah. Wow.
Wait, what? That is a surprise, because I didn't know that until just now, until you told me, Mike. Oh,
The things you find out doing this show.
I mean, to be honest, look, I've heard this before, like this whole thing about like people seem to. First of all, it kind of does bug me that people seem to think that these people are Google, right? Like they're married to the company they're working for.
Right.
They're just employees of any other company like anyone else, right? And a lot of people, especially in Silicon Valley, will hop between lots of the big companies. Like it's very
How you
common
get a good
practice,
raise,
right? So on half of me is like, again, this wasn't to you, Mike. Sorry, just be clear. Just saying in general. I hear this from other people. Like we had like quite a few of the DevRel team dropped out of Flutter. People are like, oh my god, does that mean Flutter's rubbish or it's going to go downhill or like suddenly like all these other things? And you're like, no, it literally means not. It's not even related in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, so it's the same thing here. Like it's like probably that he's felt that he's made a great product. I guess I'm not putting Hicks probably watching. I'm not putting words in your mouth, Hicksy. But my guess would be that he's probably feels like he's had, he's built a great product. He's spent a lot of time on this stuff. He's done very similar things in the past. He's probably just said, okay, I've done this to death now. You know what I mean? This is. I feel satisfied that I've achieved this, and he's going to decide to move on. However, maybe someone else could talk about this.
Well, just before that, real quick, don't forget when you have a lot of success, other companies wave bigger salaries at you. And when people have achieved a lot, sometimes it's good to leave on a high note, so that you have that's everything's good. So if you take a look, they waived really big money increases at Chris Sells, right? At Tim. Eric wanted to go do his own thing.
It doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be. It's not all about like money. It's also about the fact that a lot of the time in the development sphere, you build something, you feel you for ownership and credit over that. You've done a really good job, but you also feel that you've spent a lot of time on that one project, and now you feel like you've got a taste for something different. And especially if your interests change or new technology comes out that you want to work with, then you'll move on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I threw a link in the back end chat. Ian Pixie did post a
I got it.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, on his blog. Yeah.
Okay, I'll bring that up. Let's see again. I'm not trying to put
posting it right now.
pop there in the chat for anyone who wants to read it. We won't go through it now on the stream, but anyway, either way, Craig, welcome to the show. Look at that.
Hey,
everybody.
It's been a while since you've been on the show.
Yeah, it has
Yeah.
too long.
Last
I
time I
see
saw
you're
you was
all-
Miami.
What's that?
I said the last time I saw you was Miami.
Yeah, IO Connect. That was a pretty fun event. It was the first time I'd been to Miami in a little bit. I see you were all talking about the sizzling news of the morning.
Yeah.
Um,
Is this a today thing then? Wow. It is.
I forget exactly when it was public. I think his blog post. Well, I forget the timestamp on the blog.
it was
post.
like 13 hours ago. So yeah, so yesterday, late yesterday.
So is already effective, or is he going to be going in a week or two? Or
I believe it is already effective. He had shared those plans about a month ago or so. I don't want to speculate on his internal mindset other than what he's already said. The speculation that you're all sharing about how he's accomplished a lot and whatnot, I know is a factor. He has just been at Google for a long time, and he's seen a lot, and I think he's all similar to Eric is kind of the read that I get, but this is very this is unfounded. Don't take it to the bank or anything. But just given the fact that he wants to work on remote Flutter widgets and his blank canvas project, which are two big passions of his, but has historically had no time to touch them. In terms of money, Scott, you're talking about, big checks that folks have previously left the Flutter team for. I don't know to what, I don't think anybody has ever done making money and I don't want any more of that. But I'm not getting the sense that that's really factoring in. Someone who's been at Google as long as he has is probably pretty comfortable. So he may just be
like Eric. He wanted to do his own thing. So.
Yeah. It would make a lot of sense to me if he's just like, you know what? I just want to wake up and have fun every morning again. And that's still Flutter, but I don't want the constraints of my current job description. So, he is a great guy. We've taken comfort for the last month knowing that he wants to keep working on and around Flutter. But, I think it'll be largely business as usual. Interestingly enough, he may start having more impact on Flutter.
I was going to say, yeah. So we've seen this, we've heard of this kind of thing before, but when you're working behind the veil on a project, you're so in on working on the project itself, you don't get to use the product, right? Mm-hmm. So you're building the product, you don't get to use the product. And that's definitely the case, I think, with Flutter, that you can be so heavily working on the internal workings that you don't actually get to build stuff with it. And I think it's nice to be able to take that step back and go, okay, I'm just going to use the product that I've been working so hard to build, right? And I think that's a great thing.
He and Eric right now are in an interesting position because they're able to use it and still have an awful lot of influence by putting in PRs. Mm-hmm. And now they've got a perspective they haven't had before. So they might be saying, oh, I didn't realize this because I wasn't using it. So I'll put in a PR to fix this and fix that and fix this. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ian's impact on the project, even his non-technical impact, his technical impact as the original TL is, happy birthday, Randall. His technical impact is just borderline infinite and self-evident and all that. But his cultural impact isn't going anywhere. He's very responsible for the openness, the earnestness of the project. And, he's not taking that with him. So.
Cool.
Just one thing I hadn't heard one way or the other, because I have my head down in another project, but is Michael Thompson still running things?
I believe, I don't know. I am out of the loop on the permanency of that, but I still jokingly refer to him as the Flutter head of state. And no one has told me that I am inaccurate in saying that.
Well, should we crack on with some more questions? I don't want to.
Yeah.
There's some interesting ones here.
Yep.
So do I get my job back?
Should we just take the
you're
next?
driving.
Should we just pick the next one on the list?
Why
I'm gonna
Flutter
hide for a minute or two.
316 autocomplete
Okay.
of function signature is not working?
So in fact, I don't see this. So I know what he's talking about. This has actually been a long-term bug with the analyzer, and IDEs. I've seen this for many years with Flutter, and I don't know what it is. I've just kind of always worked around it. Sometimes you can be typing. Let's say you're in a state widget, and you go to type like init state, and you want it to autocomplete, and it doesn't.
I've never had that problem.
Yes, you have, Scott. You've literally complained to me about
I
it.
get two of them. I have my own custom and
Anyway, but the point here is that sometimes, you like. I think it was like you add a mix in, and as soon as you add a mix in, the autocomplete stops operating correctly, something like that. I've seen that, experience that before.
But another possibility, if this started with Flutter 316, things can just be weird if you don't restart your editor across a Flutter upgrade.
Oh
So
yeah.
always Flutter clean, and then just reload your editor. That
is something that a lot of people don't do, that I keep reminding people doing, that is run type Flutter clean, because that deletes all your temporary caches about your project. And like, you don't like, there's a .dart tool directory which will have compiled cached versions of stuff for maybe your previous version of Dart/Flutter, and that's causing some weird incompatibilities. When alpha was around, we literally be running Flutter clean on every new release. Like, you just like, it would be
release. We ran a Flutter clean every 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was very literally like all the freaking time. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. But yeah, definitely an upgrade. Clean your project. If you had some weird, it's always very one of those things when you have some weird like behavior, like this shouldn't be happening. As soon as you have something that you're like, this definitely should be happening, Flutter clean. First
I Flutter clean, and then I close and reopen it. That doesn't work.
I have it's in my README, and I can't remember the exact syntax, but whenever I run a clean, there's one line that I drop in the terminal, and it has my Flutter pub get followed by run build runner, followed by Flutter gen L10N, and it's all just one line, and then it just happens one after another. So I'm not sitting there constantly running 2, 3, 4 different commands in the terminal after I do a clean every time.
So, anyone else got anything to add? Otherwise, we'll jump on to the next one. No, all right. Is the 20 friends for testing your app before policy real? I don't know what you mean by you're talking about the new Google policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a thing. It happened. I tweeted about it. I
think a lot of people did.
It's very confusing to me, to be honest. But I don't think I've got anything to add to it. It's a thing.
Simon, you keep saying it. For those of us who don't know what this is, it is not helping.
So the Play Store console or the Play Store team have released I'm going to go find the tweet now so I can pop it up in the chat here. But they released a new policy where you have to have 20 people test your app, separate accounts, test your app before you can publish it for release. So here it is. This is it here. Let me pop this. I'll bring this up on screen for those that haven't seen it. Did we lose? Oh, he's back. He's back.
I'm back. Yeah, my browser for some reason just decided to close.
Oh wow. Let me see if I can bring up this this blog post, this thing recently.
While you're doing that, I'll just say I certainly don't have any inside information on this, other than general public knowledge that there are a lot of spammy app uploads to the Play Store. So we're just trying to deal with that.
Yeah. Developers of newly created personal Play Store console accounts will soon be required. So first of all, personal Play Store console accounts required to test their apps with at least 20 people for a minimum 2 weeks before applying for it out for production. So in other words, set up a company, have a validated, verified company account, and you're not going to have to go through this, right? But I mean, that's the point, that you verify your account. So it's the same thing. I think a lot of people. So what was this? Earlier on this year, I had a client, and they signed up to Play Store account. They're like, I have to provide my driver's license and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, really? I didn't know that. I never had to do that because I got mine like 15 years ago or something, right? So it's kind of interesting that then just recently I got an email saying, that's it. All the accounts that are now have to be validated. So now I have to go through the same process that I've never had to go through before. And I think this is again the thing. If you can make sure that all your accounts have been verified and validated as real people, then you can then you're not just blocking that account, but you're blocking that person. So if that person then goes to set up another account with their same credentials, then their driver's license and passport number match. So then therefore they can't set up an account and get blocked, right? There's other ways around this kind of spamminess, right? Yeah, won't spam app. Yeah, I mean, look, there's always ways around all this stuff, but again, it's like you can then do analytics on that and validate that is this real people and are these. If your corporation will need to supply a phone number for your customer, good call, Marco. So equally though, to mention about that, there's lots of online solutions for phoning, right? So VoIP stuff and everything else. Anyway, so as it says here, more specifically, it says with personal accounts created after November 13th, 2023, will run a closed test for their app for a minimum of 20 users who have opted in for at least the last 14 days continuously. By continuously, Google means that they won't count testers who opt in and test for less than 14 days and then opt out. So this to me is quite a heavy constraint, if I'm honest. Like 14 days of continuous testing. I'm surprised if a lot of apps get that, to be honest, especially from 20 people. But then again, this is only for personal accounts. These are for people that maybe don't have to go through the rigorous checks that other ones have to.
And is it only for personal accounts after November 13th?
Yeah, that have been created after 13th of November. But yeah. So this is only on
basically
it's only on new accounts.
Yeah.
Only new accounts. So continue accounts right now, you won't have to do this, right? Certain features of the Play Store will be disabled until these requirements are met. There you go. So that's what this was all about. But yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. Right. I mean, there you go. Let's carry on. Oh, this is one.
Shoot. Where are we at here?
This one. Right.
This one.
We're keeping the top two around. Anyway, so this is actually literally been talking about this for the past 4 or 5 shows. There's an area in the site for breaking changes in the Flutter site, and it has carried instructions for that will pop scope and the requirement that's going to be coming up for Android 13 support for changing the way that the back button works. And the answer to this is you don't, right? You need to update you're basically doing a set state and you're updating the Boolean that the widget returns back, right? It's no longer a function. The idea is that it needs to do the whole point of this whole change is that rather than doing the back action and knowing and then going, can I go back? The operating system knows ahead of time if the user can go back or not. Yeah. So it doesn't even give them the option to side swipe. It won't even show the arrow at the side of the screen, and it won't even have the back button, right? It'll be disabled. So the whole idea here is that the operating system knows if the user can go back from the screen or not beforehand. So that's the flip, right? It's complete flip of behavior. Let me find the page on the Flutter site. And
to clarify now, if you have a Flutter app and the user should not be able to go back, the operating system is going to be aware of this?
Yes.
Because I thought we were just running the Flutter app on a canvas in a main activity with
it does, but it still links between all the screens and everything else like that. It still knows when the keyboard comes up and still.
All right. The OS knows when the keyboard comes up. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a section called breaking changes and release. Let me bring this up a stream so everyone can see it. So this is the page on the site. If no one's seen it, let's just make it big. There we go. Yeah. So yeah, you get all the release breaking changes. So not yet released to stable. These are things you need to pay attention to. These are the upcoming changes that haven't been released yet that you need to make your app compatible with. And then here's Flutter 3.16, and this will link us to yes, you've got nonlinear font. Non-linear font scaling is another one that you should check out as well. For life me, oh yeah, predictive back. There we go. So Android predictive back is the name of the feature, and this is showing you what the migration guide is and what you need to do. For Android 14, that was not 13. My bad. Anyway, yeah. So this is it now. So basically, you have a can. You just provide. Forget about this being a function. You're just providing a boolean can pop to the widget, and the widget reports that to the route, and the route reports that to the top level. And the top level, the I can't remember what it was now. The navigator, and the navigator reports it to the system navigation channel. So this is how, like, literally when this widget's built, this is reported back. Like it does the. It's same as will pop scope. And that is if you've got multiple widgets that disagree on if you can pop or not, there's actually a disambiguation that happens in around that. I can't remember what the distinct logic is, but you can go and check it out in the source code. Same thing will happen is if you have multiple widgets that say can pop and one says false, then it's false, right? I think if any one says false, it's false. If otherwise, if they're all true, then it's fine, right? Anyway, but yeah, so this is it, and then it tells you if the user actually popped from the operating system, right? So then it will call this function. That's it. That's as simple as it gets, right? And yeah, and if pop is false, then it was blocked by the operating system, so they couldn't. Even though it said they could, you said true, and it got blocked at some other point for another reason. But this is it, and then yeah. So this you can also update on your route. So you can actually, if you've got custom routes, you can override pop disposition, sorry, and then this will you can say do not pop. So this again, you can change it at any point, and then this will let the system know that you can't pop this route. But yeah, here it is: register pop interface, unregister pop interface, all the lovely transition guides you want. But to be honest, most people probably won't have to care about most of this. I think the only one that most people care about is this top one, which is the sort of essentially the disuse of will pop scope and now the replacement of pop scope. So yeah, hopefully that it does mean you only need to change your code, but this is the changes that have to take place when the operating systems change, right? This is why the migration guides exist. It's also the reason why we want breaking changes, right? Because what you don't want to have to do is suddenly have to have like backwards compatible code in here for forever for will pop scope, right? For the old widgets that probably never ever get used after a year from now, or 2 years from now, when Android 14 becomes like the majority shareholder, as it were. You're never going to see like the old stuff even remotely being used, and the new stuff is backward compatible, right? So
it avoids the Microsoft trap with Windows.
I saw a video the other day of someone installing and upgrading Windows from version 1 to
all the way through
Vista, I think it was, or something like that. Like, and they've got apps in there that are like 16-bit apps from the very, very beginning. It's crazy.
No, still work.
And they still work. They still open.
Just for those who don't know, really quick, when Windows started doing upgrades like 3.1.1 and 95 and all that, apps would break because the operating system didn't work the same way. Well, people were blaming Windows when what it was the app developers were not updating properly. So instead of telling the app developers to update, Microsoft told their own engineers to make sure things were backward compatible. And it's this trap now that they have to do every single time there's an upgrade. Everything is backward compatible back to when, computers were run by Steam.
Yeah, and that was part of our problem with Windows Phone, because we broke and said no apps that exist are going to work. You got to write them all over.
this was so it's a trap, right? It's a trap. It's interesting though because Windows also came out with, what was it called, the Windows Universal UAP?
Universal Windows Platform. UWP.
UWP, that's the one. UWP. And what that does is that restricts the set of APIs that your app can use to just ones that are now supported going forward. So there's a way of actually having that, breaking that backwards compatibility finally, and actually having a migration pool. That means you don't have to have like an operating system that has all this like cruft for like compatibility for decades, right? Equally though, the other converse problem is that Apple has, right? So for example, I upgraded my Apple phone that I have here for testing, and I then realized, I can't connect to Xcode anymore because Xcode needs to be updated. To update Xcode, I need to update the operating system. So now I had to update the operating system, then I had to update Xcode, then I had to update all these other things, and then I could then plug my device in to do testing again. And heaven forbid, like some other software now wasn't compatible or hadn't upgraded to the latest version of some API that Apple now has, and it's broken, right? So I think that I like the way that Flutter does this in terms of, first of all, the nice thing about Flutter is that we ship it as part of our apps, right? So we can like just download the latest version and we get the latest changes, and it's not as crazy as an operating system. But equally, like we don't want to, you don't want to have like the problem with software is that this, from my experience as well, so you have an API. Give an example. In my case, we had an API on a project, and you had to maintain 3-4 versions of the API, so that because we had users across multiple versions. Now you force upgrade the users, you get them onto the latest version, you start deprecating those old APIs, say 1% of our audience is now connected to, it's too bad, gone, and just keep pushing forward. Otherwise you ever get bogged down. App bar.
Don't grow up. That's the trap.
Admiral app bar. I like it. But yeah, you forever get into this trap of like almost getting into mud as a developer, because you're every time you make a change, you have to make a change to 5 other different systems or something like that. You end up really kind of like your productivity slows down way so much when you actually have to maintain like a huge code base because of compatibility. It's ridiculous. So one of the advantages for Flutter is that we say, okay, it's deprecated, we're going to remove that support. And they give notice and they give the proper, like as you just saw, that brilliant guide that's on the website. What's going on? Go on.
There is a question. Actually, I want to skip ahead a minute because this question.
Sure, go for it. I was ranting.
It's so valid. It's so relevant to what we're doing right now. I have never heard of anything like this. Has anybody else said that it's not following?
Yes, it doesn't. Correct. So I mean,
have we ever had breaking changes on the second or third digit, other than in alpha where every single update was a breaking change?
Well, just now, that was literally what we just described. The Android back thing is a breaking change, and that's on a 0.16 release.
Yeah,
we didn't go to version 4 when that feature came out, and that's fine. I mean, like again, I think the difference here is, for me personally, the difference is I don't expect frameworks and like libraries to really follow that pattern necessarily, whereas an app I think does. But maybe I
think you could say Flutter kind of does, but it's almost like it shifts everything one place.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah. Right. I mean, a lot of places do that though. Like it doesn't have to. Normally the major releases like the big foundational major like version, right? You don't change that for any in practical like at some point. I mean, the thing is, at some point you've done so many minor changes that you've changed everything, and that becomes the major release, as it were, right? But yeah,
for Flutter, it's like a big PR opportunity is the big number change. Then the incremental change is next. They're just quarterly. You say watch by them unless we have CI issues on the day. And then
as overlaps, right?
Right, and then that'll have whatever breaking changes it has. And then you've got the minor releases that just kind of like week by week work. And then your micro changes, that's basically commits to master if you're on that channel. So there is, it's a bit of a shift from super conventional Semver, yes. But there are Flutter releases have their own there is a rhyme to the reason. or reason for the.
I mean, I've seen version numbers I'm kind of interested in like a lot of versions use the actual time, right? So like IntelliJ uses 2023.3 for the third quarter of 2023. That's the release for that quarter, and they just sorry, the fourth quarter because it starts at 0. So yeah, I mean, like it's kind of interesting just to base it on that, but it works, right? All right.
All right. We are getting a little bit behind here, even if we stick to the 2-minute per question rule. Haha.
Yeah, we want to get some
We're
live
still
coding in as
looking
well.
at the half past the next hour. So
yeah, we have a couple that we set aside for live coding samples.
Yeah.
okay,
So let's,
and a couple of these really aren't questions, but hello. I've got a fuzzy one next to me right now. Mike, very cool.
Shout out to Mike.
50,000 downloads. Very cool.
Yep.
It's good to hear others say, I don't know that on camera, but you know, whenever Rap comes and visits us in Zoom, we just tell him that all the time. All righty. Let's see here. Next one. Are we doing the sliver widgets one now, or is that how long?
hang on. The next one. Hang on. Let's just go. I'm just going to the next one down, and there's just Kubernetes is not responsible for routing incoming traffic to Docker nodes, but API in each of the sides are deployed on Nginx. If I'm using AWS load balancer, how will it integrate with system? Well, this is an interesting question, but also it's kind of not our usual as well. I think you'll find that the problem you've got here is that you normally have you've got Kubernetes is responsible for routing incoming traffic to Docker nodes, but API on each of these sides. I don't know what you mean by sides. I mean, you're talking about nodes.
Maybe each node. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say each node in the Kubernetes cluster is deployed in Nginx. This is fine. So if you've got like some Dart code that's running or some Nginx in front end, it's just a web server. So then you just route your traffic at the front end. Kubernetes will listen on ports though, right? So you'll probably want to run a different port for each different node and then route traffic to those ports. There's no reason why you can't do that, but I'm not an expert in AWS load balancer, but the way I would normally do it in most load balancers is you configure your load balancer to essentially proxy, right? So they rewrite the requests with a prefix in front, and then that prefix directs the traffic to each different place. And in terms of what yours suggest, what you're doing is you can actually change the port. So you can actually say it routes to a different port on the internal side, and now route to a different node by Kubernetes. Also,
I'm obviously prone to a little bias here, but don't sleep on Cloud Run to just not have to worry about any of this. You can eventually outgrow Cloud Run, but pretty good.
I'll be honest with you, Kubernetes. To be honest, my experience with Kubernetes in the past is quite a negative one. GKE is a lovely system because you can, that's Google's Kubernetes engine, I think it's called, or something like that. Basically, it just takes away all the complexity and you get a nice little interface. But don't self-running Kubernetes is just lots of headaches. You need a DevOps team to kind of run these things. And equally, you probably don't need it. Like literally most things, like as long as you have your system in a container and you can run it with a container, that's all you need to be guaranteed, because then you can scale it, you can change, you can deploy it, you can reconfigure it, you can do a bunch of things. But as long as you're containerized, don't go crazy and go, I'm going to make a microservice system with 5 different containers and each one scales independently with different rules and regulations and configurations. And you're giving yourself a headache for no practical reason at the very beginning, right? Like, it's, in my honest, practical opinion from experience, you just, don't do that. Anyway, maybe you're at the point where you need it, but what do I know, right? But
I cannot agree with that more as a general rule of thumb. The amount of time that you can reclaim by going with a batteries included, self-scaling backend architecture or infrastructure, you will have to rake up quite a Cloud Run, or ECS. Obviously, AWS has their own self-scaling container services. You'll you will have a very successful app with a lot of users before your bill there becomes so extreme that it now is worth your investment as an engineer to figure out Kubernetes. And like Simon said, maybe you're already there, in which case ignore everything we're saying. But
There's also a barrier to entry. Like me, so I'm gonna blast around the horn here, but me and Craig did some live recordings for Boring Show where we did deploy a Dart based server on Cloud Run, and we did it within a couple of hours.
Yep.
And it's like that's how simple it can be compared to like, you know, spending days and days trying to get like your perfect configuration and setup and everything else, and then trying to automate that setup. And yeah, just keep it simple. All right, next question. Can nested multi-provider with material widget can run? Broken English, but I think I get this is, can you nest a multi-provider within a material widget? Material app widget, I guess this is what they're talking about here, because that's a common problem, which is if you put a provider as like your home parameter for your material widget, then that's just for one screen. It's not for all screens. So you need to put your multi-provider outside of your material app. I think that's what you're trying to ask here. It's not clear.
With the nesting, do they also... Oh, you go, Scott. Scott, you're
muted, Scott.
I was going to say, is the goal to nest providers within other providers, which can be done, but not inside the multi.
Feel free to clarify your question. Yeah, and then we'll come
Alan
back to
Hill, check the chat. Your answers there.
All right, next question. Why sliver widgets work differently than normal widgets? In my experience, slivers have weird behavior. Sometimes putting normal widgets inside does not work. It's just me. That's the whole point. They're designed to work differently because they're different style of. They're different. The whole point is there's actually a name. It's going to bug me now. There's actually a name for the box. I guess box. You got the render box model and the sliver box model. But there's actual the actual Flutter guide actually has the Flutter API actually has a name for this. That's gonna really bug me now. Hang on. I'm gonna see if I can find the documentation. Protocol. That's it. It's got a layout protocol. So they're designed to work differently, but also equally, what you need to, putting a normal box model widget inside a sliver should be it's literally this sliver to box adapter. Is about what I was about to say. That is your go-to. That does everything you need to do. Because slivers is, they will behave just as well as having any box model in a single child scroll view, right? There's an unconstrained height. It's experienced exactly the same. So if you're getting a layout problem, it's probably because you just don't deal with unconstrained sizes properly. So check into how you're dealing with your layout. Talking about layout, there is that what's it called? The Flutter layout guide that we keep recommending. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Here, understanding constraints. That's the one. I'll pop it in the chat. I'll bring it up on screen here briefly. This article here, this came from the community. Constraints go down, size go up, parent sets position. This is the mantra you need in your head all the time when dealing with your widgets and how you work with them. But this is a beautiful article which describes like conversations that your widgets can have to resolve the constraints that they have and the limitations and there's practical examples that you can run through and try out for lots of different like layout situations and why you might get overflows and how you solve them. So this should be your first go-to guide in trying to understand some of these things. Look, there's a wild Phillip at the bottom with unbounded heights.
Yep. Oh, look at that. There was a thanks to Simon.
Oh, was there?
That Mark put.
Don't know why that is.
No, for those who don't know, Mark did a great job on that article. He's been involved in the community since Alpha. Yep. Marcelo.
Mark. Well, Mark is in MARC.
No, yeah.
He goes by that name. But yeah, I remember I was talking about that on Zoom many moons ago. But anyway, yeah, check out the link. Right, moving on. Thanks.
Okay, what are we skipping here? We doing
Skipping
the
the top
paginated
two.
or no?
No, the top two are staying.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
What?
If a
Why
user
are we-
makes
why-
an API, what?
We're like 3 questions below what we should be. Right.
You told me to skip the top two.
Yes, that is the top two above this. You've not scrolled up. There you go.
I am
How would
scrolled
you-
all the way up.
I'm on the. Anyway, how would you give bidirectional scroll to a data table? I currently have overflow comments, blah, blah, blah. And the answer to this is the new widgets that Craig's going to tell us all about, aren't you, Craig?
Yeah.
Well, I needed to unmute. Yeah, there's a build show episode that Kate was the host for. She's also the subject matter expert on the new 2D scrolling APIs in Flutter. I was very excited to work with her on that because she was the primary designer and author of this API and its code, along with
Nice.
I think Michael Goderbauer, the TL of the Flutter framework, was I think her primary co-conspirator, but she really drove it. So it was fun to get her in front of the camera to talk about it. And yeah, if you have a lot of outstanding questions after that video, please let me know because we hoped it would answer them all.
And I think part of 3.16 also was the release of this two-dimensional scrollables as well, which is now has table view, which is a new sort of a different way of deploying this particular widget. This also might help you deal with the problem you have.
Yeah, so that's a great point. The build show episode is specifically if you want to create your own highly custom 2D scrolling, experience, and you need to know how all of the gears work. But you can also just use the off-the-shelf widgets that Simon just showed and not worry about any of it, and that's totally fine, and you shouldn't feel bad. If you just want a table that scrolls, then use that package. You'd only need to worry about all the details of the episode. If you're like, I want a table like that, but it needs to do this crazy weird thing, then you have to kind of pop open the hood.
Just want to give a quick shout out to Kate Lovett because it's like she's getting to be everywhere now. I remember back in 2019, she was largely responsible for documentation. Then she did a bunch of DevRel stuff, especially around Interact, and now she's writing APIs. So at this rate, she's going to take over the team in about a year or two, I guess.
She's after your job, Craig. She's after your job.
I didn't know I ran the team.
Yeah, secretly, that's your new job, right? All right.
She's everywhere.
All right. I think that's answered that one. No, we need any more. All right. What's next?
How do I remove empty rows from a paginated data table? For example, there are 10 items per page, and on a page there are 5 items. For some reason, the remaining rows are shown but empty. And are you specifying 10 items?
No, that's how paginated data table works. Congratulations.
Yep.
That's the widget. That's literally how it's been designed.
That's what it does. Yeah. They're just going to be there.
So this is literally by design. That's literally what it's supposed to do. There's not a bug here. There's nothing. That's just the way it works. The answer to this is don't use paginated data table and use the new data table that we just showed, the new table view or whatever, right? And or make your own widget. But sadly, if you use this is the thing that we hear all the time, which is why can't I just change the padding on this icon? It's like, well, you're using the material design button thing, right? Which has a particular set of visual density and description around the theme that it uses, and that's what it's supposed to do. So if you don't want that,
build your own
widget, right? Like you can do that. You've got all the basic things. You can just do that, and it's not that much effort. If you go look at the way these things work, there's like maybe a semantics widget in there somewhere that describe it as a button, and it's just it's a container, and it has a label and it has an icon and some padding, and you're done, right?
And sometimes it's not really easy to tell, but they do often have a padding parameter that can be set to 0, edge in set 0.
The thing is, there's also minimum. So another thing that people get confused about with the material design stuff is that there's visual density has an effect on sizes. You have padding that has an effect on sizes, and you have minimum size, which is also the tap target size that has an effect on the size. The 3 parameters work in tangent, but they provide different types of properties in different situations. So the thing is, if you start doing these things and you're fighting the widget system, you're fighting these widgets to get to do what you want, you're using the wrong widget, right? At that point, you're trying to do something it's not designed to do. So then you end up with this. Well, I've seen this before. I see widgets like people using raw material button with like 20 parameters to get to like describe what they want. Like it's this huge like mess, and it doesn't describe what they're trying to achieve anymore. It's like, well, if you just put like a material widget with an inkwell and your custom padding or icon or layout the way you want, and you've done it, and it's like it's way more descriptive and does the same job and explains the same thing. And it's like you're not fighting. You still get your ink. You still get your ink space, but you're not fighting the platform, right?
Yeah.
So basically, do something like that in line, and then you can extract it as a widget and reuse.
Oh yeah, for sure. Sorry, Craig.
Now, another thing. So I had 2 things I was going to say. One is what Scott just said. Another thing. There's an awkward trade-off in the design of a lot of these widgets between infinite customizability, infinite flexibility, and then a corresponding approaching infinite complexity in terms of that build method that has to accurately respond to all the parameters that came in, or fall back to the theme, or fall back to the default theme. And it's a lot. So this is kind of a controversial thing, but like within the Flutter team, we talk a lot about how to make this sort of problem better. And a totally okay thing to do is just copy the widget that you need out of the framework, plop it in your code, and make whatever changes you need. There's
slap the word custom in front of it, and you're good.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a risk there in terms of not, if there's some terrible bug found in that widget down the line, you'll have to do extra work to even know that you didn't get the bug fix. But that's basically the only downside. And then other than that, you get whatever customization you want. Buttons have a lot of accessibility things. They need to talk to the semantics tree, whatnot. You don't have to worry about recreating that, because if you copy the button over, tweak the padding, add a border radius, it wasn't exposed, whatever, you will copy over that correct semantics implementation. So that's a totally okay thing to do. I admit it feels a little weird, because you're forking the future maintenance of the original widget. You're forking yourself away from it, but totally okay to do. Definitely consider it.
I think there's sort of that kind of notion of, are you trying to take? Do you want all that original functionality from the original widget as well? Copy the original widget and remove the things you're not using, right? Like use the default values, set like whatever it gets, use those. You don't have to have them parameterized. I think as you start building more and more complex apps, mobile apps specifically, that from my experience is that you get into these scenarios where you build a widget, you start adding all these parameters, and suddenly you got this like God widget that like has all this complex behavior. You're like, this doesn't make sense anymore, right? And at that point, you're like, okay, refactor. Put it out, decide what responsibilities each different thing has, make multiple widgets, compose them together, which is the whole idea of Flutter's sort of UI system. And then now you've got separated responsibilities. You can reuse the components correctly, and you've got a much tidier code base, easier to understand. So you'll experience the same problem of like what Craig described, which was like, you don't want to reveal too much flexibility, because then it can be, a lot to maintain. But then you have, what did you say, infinite like complexity versus infinite
flexibility?
Yeah, flexibility, right? Yeah, so it's like flexibility or complexity. Yeah, complex involves complexity basically. So as a library, I don't blame Flutter or the Google team for not having absolutely every possible parameter and combination available to you, because I've seen widgets like that in the framework and text field, which basically just have like a cajillion parameters. Text field is a very complex use case, and it does require that, to be fair. But the point here is that you kind of end up with these widgets with like 1,000 parameters, and the way that those parameters that you can change to any value interact with each other is something that is just really difficult to test. There's a lot of emergent behavior that comes out of all of that, and it's just yeah. Be careful what you wish for. Put it that way.
Okay, it looks like we've got about 50 minutes worth of questions, and fortunately they have been cut off.
Yeah, but kind of questions. Yeah, good. Right.
All right. If a user makes an API request on a button click, which will take, let's say, 6 seconds. Okay, so it looks like a future. Now I want to have a different button that will cancel the request while in process. Well, in reality, Simon, would it be actually canceled or just the result ignored?
So there's two ways of doing this, right? So first of all, futures are not cancelable by default, right? There's no such thing as a future that's cancelable. It's quite a complex topic, but like in terms of like how that would work if you did do that, so it's simplified. However, you can cancel a future if you just had a flag that future checks. So when that future, let's say it's processing the data that comes back from the network, right? And each time it processes a bit of data, it checks the flag. Have I been canceled? Nope, I'll continue. Have I been canceled? Nope, I'll continue. That's literally how cancelable operation works, which is in the async package, I believe. I don't think it made its way into Dart async yet. Cancel and a lot of the HTTP, I think the HTTP package, I know DO does, and a few other of the libraries will implement this so that you can actually cancel an ongoing operation. And what it does is when it receives that, it stops receiving from the port, finishes off maybe receiving the data for, depending on the HTTP standard, you need to receive all the data. And then it will just like cancel the result and send back an error saying a cancelled exception or something like that. And then you can pick that up. But yeah, it does depend on your use case. But for the most part, the way a lot of people deal with this is they just ignore the result. They let it continue, but ignore the result.
Yeah.
Because you can't know that processing something halfway won't break something else. These are those topics that are very unique to your scenario. So, for example, a way of dealing with this is what's called a request ID. So, really simple way of dealing with this inside your app is just make a static integer variable called request ID inside your. Normally, you would put in your widget state, but let's just say it's in your widget state for point of your example with the button. And then when each time you press the button and it goes to make the request, it increments that number and stores it locally in the as a parameter to your future. And then at the very end of the future, it goes, is the number in the static variable the same as the one that I was passed into my local state? And if it's the same value, it hasn't been pressed again or it hasn't been cancelled. And therefore, I should send the result back to the UI and display it on the screen. It's a really simple way of doing it. You're basically just comparing two numbers and if it's incremented or not, if it's changed. And if it's changed, then the previous request is invalid. And this is how search suggestions works. You know, when you type in a search box and as you start typing, it shows the suggestions. Well, it may be that the first request you sent for like 3 letters, right, sends a result of 10,000 entries. I'm just being hyperbolic here, but let's say it returns back 10,000. Now that might take 5 minutes, let's say, to make that request. Stupidity, but just to show you an example here. Now you make a request with 6 digits, 6 letters of characters, and it returns back 100 items. That takes 10 milliseconds. Suddenly, the entry that comes back for the 3 items, that was the one you sent first, comes back last. So you don't want to show the results for the last entry, for the 3-digit request that was first. You want to show the latest one. And the way you do that is just with that like request ID. You just say, ignore the ones that are not the latest one that I sent. And you just do that simply with the numbers. It's quite simple. Maybe I'll show you in a minute. But yeah, it's quite a pattern that's used quite a lot.
All right. Autocomplete is not working on VS Code, the analyzer for callback functions also. I think this is a throwback to the initial.
Maybe it might be worth, first of all, as we said, doing a Flutter. Cherise knows things. It's not a newbie here. Do your Flutter clean and everything else. I would suggest you cancel all Dart tasks. So there'll be a Dart analysis server that's running, and make sure that all your Dart tasks and Java tasks are inside your activity monitor are closed. I think you're on Mac. And then restart VS Code and restart the Dart analyzer and see if it works. If it still doesn't work, then yeah, I would say go speak to Dan Tupp as maybe raise there's an issue in the You can raise them in the
plugin,
Flutter repository. I don't
Top
think the
is
issue's in the
TU,
plugin.
right?
Yeah.
It sounded like you said tap, TAP, but that's not.
Oh,
Oh,
Top.
Top.
No, Top.
Top, TUP.
Dan Top is the guy who runs, who owns essentially
It's,
he's been
Top
a great,
right?
yeah. He runs the in VS Code plugin basically, and does all the stuff for that. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to find it now. I know his GitHub handle, Dan Top. It's gonna be like throwing people his way, but yeah. Now, if you raise a ticket on the Flutter repo about this, just at Dan Top in it, just so he's aware, and he'll probably come in and take a look at it. That's the best I can suggest, Sheree.
Alrighty.
Hopefully, it gets solved and it's not an issue, particularly with 3.16. The other thing, sorry, Sheree. The other thing you could do maybe as a good thing before you hand it over to the team is do a little bit of legwork. Downgrade, use FEM or downgrade to Flutter, the previous version of Flutter. Try it out, see if you still have the same problem after doing a clean and a restart and everything. And if you do, then it's not particularly a 3.16 issue, right? It might be a plugin issue. You can kind of work it out, but yeah. All right.
Alrighty. Flutter web apps, including the Flutter gallery, they don't work on browsers other than Chrome, specifically on or especially on mobile. Any thoughts on why this is the case? I wonder if they're referring to the old Flutter gallery with the boxes. I hadn't even been able to find that.
And that's gone.
Or
I think
a
that example's.
Yeah.
I think that example's gone now. I know it got rewritten in the gallery. I'm not sure actually, but anyway, it is that the gallery app still exists and you still can build it for web. It should work. I mean, we need that.
It doesn't work on browsers other than Chrome. First of all, let's write Safari off that list because this is just not much work on Safari anyway.
I think, as far as I know, it's been working with Safari and Firefox, the major browser vendors. I don't see any problem with that. Have you heard of anything like this, Craig, for like browser compatibility for Flutter Web?
No, I mean, there's like background worker issues with Safari that hold back Flutter Web, but for the
most part, everything works, right?
Yeah, I just opened Safari, like I said in chat, for the first time in years, and typed gallery.flutter.dev, and it did run. So yeah, I'm not sure what they mean.
It might be yeah. I tell you what, it may be that if you're running this locally, that you've checked out the repo and you're building it, you make sure you're building it with Canvas Kit and not the web renderer or one of the others. I think only one of the modes works in like Safari. Like it may be something like that. That's a compatibility thing. But yeah, when you build the things for release using Flutter Build, it actually builds with support for both and would pick the right one according to the platform it's running on. So maybe in the release version on the site, you're seeing it correct, but then locally in debug, you're not. All right, see what's next.
Alrighty, and I think it was Shrine that I was thinking of, but Go Router, Go Router Builder, complex
objects. Encode, decode warning.
Go Router Builder, a complex objects encode, decode warning. I'm not quite sure what that means.
Are they getting a warning when they're trying to pass objects in their navigation, or?
Yeah, they need to know.
So a Go Router Builder, like for you mean route builder, which builds a route.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can provide any
verb in that sentence. So
you can provide any set of widgets. It doesn't make a difference. There should be no problem with a scroll controller, value notifier, or anything like that.
Yeah.
Perhaps
you can always find us in the community Discord if you want to dig into it more. Or
Twitter or whatever. Maybe we can kind of dig into that a bit more. Right.
Okay. Sliver grid view. I have a column inside image and text under the image. but the text gets cut off. Best way to tackle the problem.
I know exactly what your problem. I know exactly what your
do a caption.
No, I tell you what this is. Your sliver grid view has to have a child aspect ratio, right? So what you've got here is if since they're fixed, always a fixed size, your text might be larger, smaller. You might have multiple lines of text. You might have multiple image size. What are you going to do?
It just doesn't fit. Yeah,
it just doesn't fit. So it gets cut off. So the best way you can do this is set your image in terms of a column. First of all, you can change your aspect ratio to better suit your app. You can also you can use the max extent instead of max children and width. So to also has a different behavior and sizing. So check out the different types of builder delegates that you can use with Sliver Grid View. But the best way to deal with this is to have your text and so you got a column with an image and text. Wrap your image and expand it. And what's going to happen is the text will always remain at the bottom, and then the space at the top will get smaller or larger depending on how big or small the text is, and then the image will resize to fit. There you go. Now you're always going to see it displayed. But yeah, you probably want to change your aspect ratio to better match.
All right, team. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me just drop in here. I've got another meeting in a few minutes, so I got to run.
Thanks for coming.
Will you be doing a show tomorrow?
No, U.S. holiday. So tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no stream.
Load up on turkey tomorrow.
This is where we OD on L-tryptophan.
Yeah, load up on the turkey and then
Eating
sleep
so
while the
much
football
turkey.
game's on.
Yep.
It's American football.
Right.
It's not real football, guys.
Hey, Greg.
See you later. Thanks, Greg, for
Love you
joining
all.
us.
Hey, Greg, thanks for coming.
See ya.
Yep.
Alrighty.
I just want to bring this up. Right,
Today.
we haven't forgot your app. We just after we've done these few questions that remain in the queue, we'll get to your live coding.
Haven't forgotten.
If we can go
Although I
back just
still
a
won't see
couple
that
questions ago. Yeah, if we can go back a
Go on.
couple questions ago, you asked, somebody was talking about cancelable futures. I've seen a package that fires off an isolate and kills the isolate after n seconds. That's a way of doing a cancelable future because
It's literally the same as like the old days of saying, "Okay, my computer's not shut down yet. I'm just going to yank the power cord out." Don't do this. Just don't do this. This is about.
I thought it was a good way because you can kill an isolate, right?
Sure, but suddenly you don't know what the isolate's doing. It needs to know that you've been flagged, and then it needs to check that flag to know when it should safely close. Like this is literally what the whole reason cancelable operation is designed that way. Because the problem is if you just start you can go if it's it's an isolate, right? You can just go shut it down, right? It's a thread. The problem is it may have been processing a bank transaction at the time, right? Or transacting with the database and corruption tired database because it didn't get to complete. Like these are things you just don't do in programming because it's a very bad idea. It's the reason why you should not just shut down
inserting
on your phone.
Inserting the carbon rods into the center of the nuclear reactor and you're shutting it off halfway down. Yes.
No, you just shut it off after it's done it, so they just stay in there forever.
Yeah.
To explode, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that was just a thought. Okay.
All right, let's move on.
Yep.
Alrighty, where is we? I've discovered that slivers have rows and columns, well, main axis and cross group, which is great. What's the difference between using a sliver to box adapter to an actual row or column?
Okay, let me explain this. It's one of my favorite new features of Flutter. Sliver. I've wanted this for years. So the point here is when you want for slivers, only what's visible on the screen is actually attached to the tree and rendered as part of the tree, which means you can scroll like 10,000 items and you don't make 10,000 widgets all at the same time, right? So the nice thing about this is that it means that you can actually have like a column with certain backgrounds and other attributes, and each element of that column is recyclable. If you just put a sliver to box adapter with a column inside, it's one object in the sliver's eyes, and therefore it recycles the entire column as one thing, which means if you put 100 items in that column, you create 100 widgets, even though they're not visible on the screen, which defeats the purpose of slivers, right? So the whole idea of the sliver main axis and cross group widgets is to allow you to do recycling on subgroups, not just the top level sliver list, but on sub lists as well. Really important. There's so many times I've wanted this. In fact, if you want a good example of this, I think we put it in the WoW shopping app. So if you go, I can put this in the chat. So for those that don't know, I want to continue this actually. We decided for in fact, I'll pop the link in the chat and bring up on the screen here, just for those that don't know. We did a, what do we call it? It was a Flutter code camp. Was it Flutter Dev Camp? That was it. Flutter
Dev Camp.
And we did so right here on this stream. If you go look at, they've got different thumbnail in the live section, and we did a bunch of live coding on building a e-commerce shopping app. And this is, I can't see it on the screen, sorry. And part and parcel of this was actually using, what was it called? Main axis group. See if we can find something. There you go. Homepage. There's a sliver expansion tile as well. And so this actual sliver expansion tile is a really great concept. Maybe I can bring it up and show you guys. In fact, I'll bring it up in a minute and I'll show you it. But it makes use of this exact same thing. So you can expand items, and each of the child items is recyclable in the main list, which is a great example of where those new widgets come in and are really useful. All right, what we got next? Let's power through.
Is there any way to access the phone compass? I've seen one package, but it looks like it's been left for dead. Randall, you already posted this a while back. What was the name of that one? It was not Irium Sensors.
Sensors Plus.
Sensors
the Flutter
Plus,
community.
Okay, I know
that's updated.
Simon and I used to use Irium Sensors back in the days. You know.
So since Sensors Plus is actually missing, it does bug me. I've been meaning to get to it. For those that don't know, let me bring this up. So this is Sensors Plus. It's a community package. Originally, all the Plus packages from the community are from the original Sensors package, which is now deprecated. So if you go to Sensors, you'll see it's been discontinued and tells you to go to the community Sensors Plus one, right? Anyway, so the nice thing about this is we have, if you go look, do we have an API in here? Well, but anyway, you have magnetometer, gyroscope, accelerometer, and user accelerometer event streams. This is great. You get these exact streams for the details, but what you don't really want to have to do is to combine these streams to get your device vector. That is like the rotation of the device and the angle of the device and where it's facing and how fast it's going in that direction. Like this is a pain, right? Especially when the platforms all supply literally a stream of here's your device rotation in 6 degrees of freedom. That's what we should be having on here, and it's something that we need to add. So yeah, but the one thing you're looking for is the magnetometer event inside the Sensors Plus package, which is essentially compass. It's degrees from magnetic north, if you want to know what it's all about. Anyway,
magnometer, not magnometer.
I can't.
No, it's like it's not kilometer, it's kilometer.
No, I disagree.
And I thought that there was
you think it's kilometer?
Magnetometer.
I get.
He also probably says aluminium.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Magnetometer.
You know.
Magnetometer. Magnetometer. You're right. It looks like magnetometer. Okay.
No. Well,
I give you that one now.
And
the X-Men magnetometer.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yes, X-Men.
But you said, what did you say, John? It was aluminum.
I said, and he probably says aluminium too.
Yeah,
but they're spelled different, so that's a good reason.
Are they?
Yes, they
really?
Are. Yeah.
Does it have a U in it or something like all the other?
No,
British
they put
words?
They put an I in it. They put
what is it? ALLOU.
No.
Yeah.
You took the I out. There's a difference.
No, you added an I.
Yeah. Actually, I think you did. Anyway,
Jetpack Compose. Android. That's what they are. They're Android.
Yes.
So for those that don't know, Jetpack Compose is a system like Flutter's widget system where it renders to a canvas rather than using the natural hierarchy of widget system. So it means they can use a more declarative widget approach. It actually was based off of Flutter at the very beginning. In fact, if you go and look at the repo, the very first version, you're going to find some Dart code in the comments. It was quite funny when me and Scott, we were at Google I/O when it was released. And we had no idea it was coming out. It was on the big screen. We're like, hang on a second.
Yeah,
and then
let's do a little context here, okay? The keynote had just finished. 6,000 people are all trying to get to lunch at the same time. out of the amphitheater. Simon is walking like this with his phone. Okay, everybody else is like shoulder to shoulder, and Simon's just down, and he starts cackling like an idiot, just laughing. Starts showing the code around. Now it's my understanding that the Flutter team helped with this. That the Android team didn't steal it. But
steal what you own. It's the same company.
Examples in the doc comment were still written in Dart when they released it at I/O 2019.
But yeah, and anyway, it's a funny aside, right? But it makes no difference, right? The point here is if you're interested in using, Kotlin and you want to do that and you want to use Jetpack, go use it. It's fine. If you're interested in Flutter and you like doing Flutter, you like Flutter framework, use Flutter. It literally makes zero difference. The end result is the same. Pixels get painted on the screen.
one of the biggest people in Android, Stacy Davino and I, once again, we talk about this all the time, and we both agree. Flutter, Android, all of these things are tools. It's a hammer, it's a saw, it's a screwdriver. Yes, you can put a screw in with a hammer. You know what? You're not going to do a very good job of it. Use the right tool for the right situation.
Yeah.
That's what it all really comes down to. All right. When should Flutter developers need to start learning algorithm concepts? Now, I'm assuming that you mean data structures and algorithms. How can knowing them help improve my app? Number one, start learning them from your very first day. Just start learning simpler ones.
From age 7. 7
okay.
and up.
I'm going to caveat this experience. Hang on. The reason why a lot of developers don't learn algorithms right now is because you use the built-in ones. Like you're using list. It has a sort function.
Yeah.
It will do its quick sort, bubble sort, array sort, merge sort, whatever the hell sort it wants to do, but it just works. So you go, I don't care about the algorithm as long as it does it, right? It's when you start making applications that actually have that business logic that require algorithms, in which case you want this book. Bring it closer. Can we see the who makes it? So this is,
I didn't even realize that's in Dart.
Code. Yeah, so Ray /CodeCo have released this book. It's been around a while. That's a great one for specifically for Flutter /Dart programmers. But equally, the principles of things like algorithms and data compression and other things are just general good knowledge to have as a developer to understand what ON terms there are, what it means in terms of complexity over time.
And there are certain things like, as Simon said, big O is important to know, because when you're scaling your app, using more and more and more resources, you have to make sure that it's not going to become exponentially more resource intensive. Another thing too is, as one of the things that Simon was saying, is the list has a sort function. A lot of this has been abstracted away. There are a lot of things that can't be abstracted away. Okay. Knowing your big O for when you start handling larger and larger files is one. You're still going to have to know that. Design patterns. Okay. The repository pattern, also known as the facade pattern. What Simon, the visitor pattern is another one. The decorator pattern. These are all good to know. Yes. Design pattern. And also, they're both. Now, hang on. Both you guys hold those up real quick. The bottom one is written in English. The top one is a reference book for people who already know what the design patterns do.
So the best things in this book,
trying to learn them.
The very back page, the relationship between all the different patterns.
And I'm going to throw up a banner here.
I think there's actually.
Give me a minute to find this, but there is a fantastic YouTube channel that will teach you all about these, and the guy is hilarious.
Yeah.
It might take me a minute to find it.
It's interesting because this was published. Was it first published in like 1970 something?
Yeah, a while back. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
I got to find the date here because it's kind of interesting. Yeah, 1977, and so the terminology in this book is not modern. This is driven around. Actually, I think it was probably Objective C at the time, and And no, it would have been before Objective-C.
Yeah,
That was
probably
18,
just
wasn't
C,
it?
C++, maybe.
Anyway, but this was quite early days, and then they would talk about messaging, like the term of sending a message is interaction between two classes, which we don't use that terminology anymore. So the Gang of Four book, which is what it's called because of the four authors, great reference, is the truth behind like most design patterns. But again, get the one that John showed, which is a more modernized version that brings it up to date, basically.
Well, I am having a hard time finding that in the banners. So that right there is a link.
I'm going to recommend this book. This is Computer Organization Architecture. Let me bring this up bigger. There you go. The Essentials of Computer Organization Architecture by Linda Null and Julia Labor. This is probably quite expensive book, but really worth it. This literally goes through everything you want to know about computer systems, like from like just binary algebra, algorithms, all the way up to how computer memory works, the CPU works, and everything, all the way up to modern networking, like the entire stack of everything. So it's a great reference manual for those that want to know a bit more about how computer systems work.
And for those who would rather sit back and watch YouTube than read a book, Christopher Kravi did a fantastic series. All kinds of design patterns, strategy, observer, factory, facade. And what he did was he went through the book that John held up and went over every single one of them, like the facade, which is also known as the repository pattern, bridge, iterator, composite. I mean, there are adapter, decorator. And he also does an awful lot of different talks, singleton, command, structural. What is structural? Structural patterns, template. I mean, there's just a pile of them that he goes over. The guy's got a great sense of humor. He's a little bit nuts. And congratulations to you if you see this, Christopher, because he finished his doctorates a couple years ago. And that's why his videos stopped, because he probably is getting paid a boatload of money from IBM or somebody else.
Big Blue. Big Blue stole him away from the community. No.
All right.
All right, go on.
Why text field cursor is jumble start to end when we use right to left direction while entering press? Okay. The whole right to left thing is definitely going to be your language dependent, like Arabic, and
yeah,
I don't know anything about that. How about you?
So there's actually some bugs in this. They've actually been reported. The person you want to speak to in the community is Ralph.
Ralph Freshy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put that in the chat because it is not the way.
Anyway, so Ralph has done talks on. First of all, he's from Algeria. He speaks Arabic. He's been in since day one. In fact, me, him, and come on, Scott. Who? Oh my God, I haven't spoken to him in a long time. Who's the guy who runs Flutter Egypt? Who did all the road trips?
Ahmed.
Yeah. So Ahmed and him, we actually did at the very beginning. We're the people that actually pushed for the Flutter team to add diacritics and correct handling of a bunch of special things for the text handling during alpha. So the problem you're experiencing is to do with the way that right to left text works, and also the fact of the way sort of selection works. The cursor works based on selection, and it works based on offset and extent, and that can get mixed up in a certain way in the way that the current system works. The best way I can talk about, the best way I think, is to speak to them and see if you can find the bugs that have been reported and follow the bugs, and hopefully we get them sorted out in a new release. You also could probably so when you set text in the text editing controller, you can set the compositing region and the selection region. I'd go take a look at see if you can set those to essentially have it put the cursor in the right position to begin with, rather than it trying to fix it at the beginning. And I think that's the problem you're experiencing, which I think was the workaround on the ticket.
Quick aside, just for fun, I did just post the link to Rauf's YouTube channel. He's a really great guy. I think he might still be in London now. He moved from Algeria. When he was 17 and 18, he created the largest collection of Dart and Flutter tutorials in Arabic, and it might still be. When he was 19, his work got noticed by the people at Algeria 2.0, and they asked him to give a talk. And he was like, "Oh, it's my first talk. I'm very nervous." And everybody in the community was like, "Relax. It's no big deal. You know, you just go ahead, tell the people what's going on. You know, we're figuring this is like a dev fest, 250 people come in, maybe 50 in the audience." Algeria 2.0 is 8,000 attendees for his very first talk. So when it was all done, we had been coaching him. When it was all done, we said, "Well, how did the audience like it? How many people were in your audience?" He said, "I don't know. The lights were blinding. I couldn't see that thing."
That's a good thing. You don't have to see their faces.
Yeah.
You don't know how many.
Yeah. So imagine that, if your very first talk is at an event with 8,000 people, and I think there might have been 2 tracks. So
I remember being in my theater group in high school, and the first thing I had to do was not wear my glasses, which were thick bottle bottom glasses, right? And I couldn't see the audience, so it was really awesome. It was like, I don't even know if I'm in an audience. It's great.
Oh, let's see here. Any way to auto-magically log class and function names in Flutter or Dart? Well, log them when?
Well, you'd have to log
trigger them to be logged?
package.
I'm thinking there's ways of doing this actually. So there's a trick that the mock classes use, which is a special method called no such method, which gives you the invocation object, which tells you the function name and the parameters and all this kind of stuff, so you could log it. I don't see a reason why you couldn't wrap another object in something that does the logging. It uses no such method to do the logging, and then it calls the inner object with that function to actually make it happen. Yeah,
that'll be trivial when we get the inline wrapper classes, because you can say it doesn't implement anything, it just implements no such method, and then it calls it on the actual wrapped object. That'd be cool.
To be honest, no, there's no nice way of doing this, Alan. Okay. And to be honest, it's something that most languages don't have. And the reason for it, and the main reason for this, is that it's a compiled language. All that logging and everything else would just degrade the performance. And it's the reason why it's just not a good idea, just generally a good idea to do that in a lot of things, right? Like you're just adding it's like, I was doing some performance. I think it was me and Matt Carroll were doing some performance optimizations on some code we were building. And we're trying to figure out why it wasn't behaving right. Turns out our actual logging of all of the traces that we're trying to do was the thing that was messing up our performance. So that teaches us, right? So I think the key here is, be careful what you wish for, right? But yeah, if I don't know your reason, maybe it's server side and you want to like log things, then obviously log them to your heart's content.
Alrighty. Greetings. Hi. I faced an error in my Firebase Firestore stating something that exceeded data limits. No, it was a 64,000 something, blah, blah, blah. What you need to do is more than likely go into your app level Gradle in Android and change your minimum SDK version to 21. That's not still.
You're talking about. I'll tell you what you're talking about. You're talking about the exceeding the class dex limit.
Yeah,
and the method limit, and you'll get a method. If you get that, then in multi-dex. But by default now, all Flutter deployments are multi-dex enabled. Just by default now. That was a while ago. This is a problem because you're using a free Firebase project on the Blaze. I think it's Blaze. Is it the default free one? I think it's Blaze Plan or something like that. I have to check the names of them. Hang on, bear with me.
The free one.
Spark. Spark is the name of their free plan, and it has limitations on how many requests, how much storage you can use, and all this kind of stuff because it's free. You need to update. So inside on the Firebase console, on the bottom left, you'll see an upgrade button. Press that, and you can upgrade to the pay-as-you-go model. You have to put card information and whatever else, and then you put a budget in, right?
Yes.
Like put a budget, whatever you think your monthly budget, $100, whatever it is, that is your maximum that you could possibly go to. That way, you never ever get a surprise cloud bill of 10 grand.
Now, one thing that can help with this, it's kind of an aside. The Cloud Skills Boost program, the annual subscription is about $300 US. For that, you get free access to all of the cloud courses. You get Google will pay your first attempt on any fee for your certifications. If you pass the certification, they'll just keep paying. So you never have to pay for those. And you get 500 credits for $300 US, which is in addition to all the access. And every single time you pass a cert, they give you another 500. And you don't have to use these for the courses because the courses come with their own credits to pay for them. The 500 in credits is just for you to goof off with or do whatever you want.
Yeah. If I'm going to say, actually, right now on that point, Mamun, if you go to console.cloud.google.com, make sure you're on the right account that you set up your Firebase project. Go find your Firebase project to be listed as a Google project. You'll probably have a banner across the screen. We'll give you $300 for free right now. Google will offer you that as a first-time account. If you've got this as your first Google account for using cloud, they'll say, here's $300 you can use right now on any cloud infrastructure. And just press accept, and you set up your billing account. You still have to set up a billing account, but then they'll just credit it with $300. So that's a great little free money.
Now, those expire fairly quickly, whereas the 500 are good from January to January.
I think it's just 3 months, and you've got 3 months on
Something
the
like
$300,
that.
something like that. But the point of the whole reason they give you that is the idea is that you can then go into Google Cloud. You can go create a really expensive server. You can do all this. You can foot around and see and experiment with all of the cloud infrastructure, so you can you can learn on it, right? And that's the key here. But equally, as Scott said, like the
Skills Boost.
Skills Boost stuff is actually a really great way to learn cloud. All right.
And you can work your way all the way up to getting certified as a cloud architect. And it's just a flat annual fee of $300. So it's not like going to a boot camp or something where you have to pay $15,000 or something like that. And yeah, I know boot camps that cost more than that. Anyway, in right to left direction, why is string interpolation showing
Weird
nature? Weird nature?
Weird. I'm guessing weird.
In right to left, why string interpolation show weird nature? Never had a problem with string interpolation inside of right to left. You might be. I tell you what you need to do inside your editor, and I don't know which editor you're using for your code. You might have the turn on white space characters. I'm trying to remember where it is now. Yeah. That's going to really bug me. So you can turn on white space characters in your editor, and what that will do is that will show you special characters. It will show you the right to left and left to right switch characters that happen in the middle of a string. When you copy and pasted your right to left text, you might have left them in there, in which case the string interpolation might be messed up. So you might have those characters actually messing up your string interpolation, I would guess. To be careful, but you need to turn on your hidden characters. And then you'll be able to see them and work around the problem.
Okay, then. I'm making a photo editor app and have gesture issues inside of a stack widget that has a positioned widget with a negative value, and that's stopping me from gesturing from the positioned.
Yeah, basically, so the way gestures work is they check the bounds of the parent first. If the touch is not within the bounds of the parent, it ignores it. It's not part. It can't be for my children because they're. So what's happening right now is you've moved something outside the bounds of the stack. Although it's painted outside the bounds, it's not touched. It can't be touched within the bounds. So don't do that. is the answer to this. You can do custom widgets, in which case you can ignore that limit, and it's in the hit test function inside the render object. You can do something custom. But why? The answer to your question really is lift the stack up. Lift the stack up so that you don't have that negative thing. It's a positive. It's always a positive number. So bring your stack maybe up 5 levels in your hierarchy, so it surrounds a different portion of your screen, and then position the position widget in the right position, and it will be fine. That's the solution to this, basically. I can show you what we're talking about in a minute if you leave the question somewhere, which is gone now. It's a good demonstration, actually, if we can find that.
He's not going to let me drive anymore. By the way, there are some days when Simon can't be here. So I want to thank Turk Patel for letting us know, hopefully I got your name correct, for letting us know how to fix that problem. So when Simon's not here, we will just say Flutter create Simon GPT.
So okay. So I've got some news for everyone. Our question man. Oh goodness me, Chris. I know you've got his name there for a second. Christian has actually. Oh yeah, you can welcome to it. There's lots of crap in it. You can take it all.
Lots of YouTube. Trust me.
Our question guy, Christian, has actually released a repository where he's been documenting all of your questions and linking to all of the answers in all of the videos. It's been absolutely amazing. I'm going to bring this up on stream and I'll link it
Did
out.
anyone ever get him a dash? I know we were talking about it.
I'm not sure. We need to sort that out. We need to get that sort of fixed. Definitely get that fixed. He's definitely earned a dash, right?
Yeah.
So
Also,
yeah,
which
Humpday
country is
Q&A
he in?
questions repository. I'm going to put the link in the chat here. But yeah, look, so you can choose like a specific topic like state management. And then here are all the questions that have ever taken place in state management. And then each of these will link you to the time code and where that question was answered. So here's my thing. So I was thinking about when he posted this, I was like, this is brilliant, right? Because it's generated, you've got all your chapter markers and everything else, but it needs a lot of work still, right? So, and maybe there's a concerted effort that we can all do, and maybe this is Christian to lead this, and this is just me suggesting just now thinking about it, is to help
Humpday
tag
GPT.
these questions, tag the questions, right? But here's the next thing: if we can get, here's my thought, if we can get transcriptions of the videos because we have the time codes, we can say all the content between these time codes in text form is the answer to this question. Now we have the questions and answers, and we have, a way of actually then going, okay, what's this question? What's the answer to this question? And boom, we can have a chat GPT kind of like list out what we would have answered because it's learned by us, right? We have like a year's. We have like we've had what 2 years, at least 2 years, 3 years maybe of this show every week. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to like teach it something half decent.
I almost cringe to even bring this up, but I've been running Cobalt CPP, which allows you to run Llama 2 models on your own machines. And I can tell you with a 3090 that has 24 gig of memory, you can get a 34 billion parameter to work on your home machine.
Wow.
So yeah, well, and the thing
some
is,
home machines, some home.
He only does it during the
reason
winter
we
to heat the
couldn't
house.
put even a 13B on the cloud using some of our credits, and have it. We could fine tune it on something like that.
Wow.
It's interesting. There's what the possibilities are in the future, right?
Yep.
All we need is me. All we need is video of me and my talking head, and then that's it. We got Simon GPT. Right. All right.
Yeah, but the lip movements wouldn't be right.
Deep
All right.
fake Simon.
Oh, don't. Please don't. Is it possible
use
to
wrong
load
information? Is it possible to load a Flutter web app in Django in a Django app, or should
Craig
I host
actually
the Flutter
answered
app on a
this.
different server?
Craig
Um,
answered this like two lines
in the
later.
chat.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
Is the answer. There you go.
Yeah, Craig said basically yes.
So when you build a Flutter web app, the end result is a HTML file, some your CSS files, whatever files, obviously assets that you ship as part of your app, and a JavaScript, some JavaScript files. So you could just stick that in your static directory. Normally, when you're building a Django web app, you have like a static folder. Chuck it in there. Make sure that the base URL in the index matches the one for the directory that you put it in, and then it will just work. And then you can like link it wherever you want inside of your web app. You don't need to have a different server for it. And if you set up like a shell script or deploy script to do that copying and stuff, then you can automate the whole thing with Django. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think it's 2.5 actually.
Right.
Anyway.
All right, one left, and then there was one. What do you recommend to use instead of Path Provider in web? Because Path Provider works in every operating system except from web, which means that guess what? You can't save from web.
So the point here is Path Provider is about getting the paths of the operating system. Web is a sandboxed environment. It doesn't have paths. You don't have any access to the file system whatsoever.
Right.
Zero. Right. So that's why you can't get work on the web. It doesn't exist. So the point here is you need to change the way your app works so it doesn't require it. I don't know what you're building, which makes you require Path Provider. So normally what you'd be doing, let's say you need to store JSON for settings for the user. Well, then instead of using Path Provider to store it in a file, you use local storage and store it in the browser's cache. These are there's different ways of doing it, right? And you're basically making that decision of which one to use higher up. It's that simple. But yeah, without knowing your specific use case, I couldn't give you a better example than that. All right.
Alrighty. So with that, I believe there might be something else going on, but I know I need to run. Anyone else?
Yep. I need to head out as well.
Yeah, sorry about being late today. I was at the grocery store. Our Thanksgiving is tomorrow, which basically I had to get in and out of the grocery store before noon because after noon there are only 2 or 3 of each item, and the old ladies will beat you to death with their purse if you try to take it before they can.
Well, that's totally okay, but it will go on your permanent record that you showed up late.
I was going to say, no, it's not okay that I get beaten to death by an old lady's purse, but okay.
It's okay that you show up late to avoid getting beaten. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we're going to go stuff ourselves with turkey tomorrow and not do any work until Monday.
There you go.
Yep.
It's really great here in the UK. We get to do that every weekend.
Wow.
Right, Sunday roast.
I'll tell you what, but the thing is the turkey is kind of healthy, whereas a fried slice drives my cardiologist insane.
I don't know what you're talking about. Healthiest thing on the planet, that is.
All right. Laters.
That's it.
So then there was 2.
You and me.
So,
do you want to do these 2 things?
Yeah. Let's So Rap has hopefully still here. He's been really, really patient with us, so we try to get through things as quickly as possible. Let's see if we can sort this out. So there's some questions around inherited widget. Inherited widget is always one of those interesting problem space things. So for those that don't know, inherited widget, there's like base widgets that Flutter has. So you have stateful widget, stateless widget. Inherited widget is makes the trifecta of the 3 major ones that most people remember. These are like base concepts, right? And the problem is it's confusing to use for the beginning. The concepts are not that different. Not that what's the word? Easy to understand. Now, I've never had problems with it, but Rap was saying the other day that he was having problems making this work. So we're going to build something that requires inherited widgets so that we can show this working and a correct way to approach this problem. So hopefully, if I can get things working. There we go. So this is the same.
Put us on the side, or so that we're kind of up on the.
Well, I was thinking about we hide the. Yeah, I was thinking we'll hide the question in a minute, but let's just leave the question open for a second.
Okay.
So we have our code from last week. What were we doing? No, this wasn't last week's one. This is, what do we do? It's title bar. That was it. This is some weird, wacky stuff that we were doing with like different pages and all sorts of fun. We had quite some fun building this last week. So if anyone's interested, go check out last week's video. We did like some custom layouts and custom bottom app bar, and it was all quite interesting. All some animation stuff and okay. Anyway, so what we can do is we can make a new file, and we're going to call it inherit me. Inherit me.
Inherit the wind.
And we'll take our beginning piece. Why not? Just to save me from typing anything else.
Oh, this is interesting. Inherited widget, inherited model, inherited notifiers. Talk about the.
Do you want us to go through them? We can go through those a little bit in this. If people are actually interested in this topic around inherited widget, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Since Turth's one is really quick to show, we'll do Turth's ones quickly, and then we'll jump onto the inherited one. How's that? That sounds like a more practical idea here, and then we can let the stream go on a little bit longer with the inherited widget stuff. So briefly, let me just this gone.
So you want to do Turt's question here?
Yeah. Just for people to understand this, really, it's a really quick one. So hopefully Turth is still here. So let's run this up on device. Whilst that's running, for those that were paying attention earlier, and there's a link in the chat somewhere if you go find it, for Wow Shopping. This is the Wow Shopping app. And I actually did some inherited widget stuff in here to show people how you use these things. So we could actually use this A as some reference, and B, there's probably some nice things that we can actually look at in here. So it was it's sliver expansion tile, which uses inherited model. For those that don't know, that's probably something for you to look at. It's pretty cool, actually, and I'll show it running in a minute, and I'll explain how it works. But we'll jump back to that in a second. Let's get back to there we go. It's running now. Okay, good. Black screen. So check a piece of material in there. There it is. Let's hide that question for a second, get us out of the way. All right. So basically, if you have a list view, so we'll just add a list view builder. We're just going to use builder because it's kind of quicker just to mess around with. And we want to return a aspect ratio 0.7. I know, sounds about right. And then we'll put a placeholder inside that. This should get us to the point of, there we go. So now we have a list of objects. Let's make this a little bit, no, wrong way, 85.
Every time I watch you live code, I see new techniques for just blanking things out. This is so cool.
So now we have this list instead of a placeholder. Well, inside the placeholder, we'll keep that there for the background right now. We'll put a page view builder, and what we want to do in the page view builder is I'll replace that with an actual implementation of it. That's better. So we want to return another placeholder. In fact, what we do, I like this idea. Is this a good idea? This could be a bad idea. We'll find out. Colors is it colors.material colors? No.
Colors.accents is the one that makes kind of the random thing. Colors.accents. Accents.
No,
yeah,
well,
that's a list. That's a list of them, so you can cycle through.
Yeah, I think there was another one I was thinking of. I think there was one called Material Colors. I seem to remember. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, apparently not. I don't know where it was, but anyway, this works. Color accents. So we have lots of different colors, and then we can set the color for this item is the one based on the index, And then we'll put that as the color for our placeholder here, just to see if this works. So we should have a rainbow. Yay!
Yay! I did a video on that. That's so cool.
So do you remember there used to be one for splotches? And this might have been like alpha days, it was a long time ago. Anyway, so if we do item counter here as well and do colors dot accents dot length, and then for each one of these, we'll just have a colored box. This is obviously really, really basic, but you get the idea. And again, we'll have we'll call this, I mean, we could call it color. Overriding local variables, dirty, so don't do it. But this will do just fine for what we're doing. Right. So they're all going to be red, but each time I swipe one, we're going to get a different shade.
Ooh.
Right. So if we, let's add a decorate box instead with a box decoration. And this would allow us to not just set the color. I feel like I want to, do you know what we can actually do? There's something.
No, I don't know what we can do.
There's something a little bit naughty we can do here. I wonder if we can do this. Let's see. See if this works. So we make a random. We create a new random class, and the seed for the random can be predictive. So first of all, random is not truly random. For those that don't know, random is pseudo-random, and pseudo-random has a seed. So if we seed this based on index, we can be guaranteed that for this item in our main list, it will always have the same sequence of random indices. Oh, see, random knows what I'm up to now.
Already hit. I see this. This is great. This is just scary great. I like it.
So rather than having them all the same color, they can still have them a predictive set of colors. So if we now take colors and duplicate that and then sort that, can we sort it based on? I feel like there was a sort based on random. Yeah, shuffle random. That's what I want. So now colors. This is just.
Yeah,
you like it? Do you like that? You like that?
I'm liking it. I'm liking it. Yeah, it's just scary. I see it. It's crazy.
So
I got
now,
a video on this now too. This is great.
So let's do. Don't think
This
the
is
shuffle actually
great.
return a new list. No, it doesn't. Good. All right.
It's
So
nice.
this is this is really stupid because we're making new lists and we shuffle them every single build. You would put this in the back end somewhere if you wanted to, but for demonstration purposes, this is good, right?
Yeah.
So now we create a border, and we'll just do border all colors white, just so we can.
We
see.
might be putting our 120 frames at second at risk, but who cares?
Yeah. All right. So what you're seeing here is this ordering will always stay the same, no matter how many times I rebuild. The order and the color, it's going to re-scroll now, but if I rebuild again, they're not changing, even though I'm using random, because it's always seeded with a different number, but it guarantees that we don't have the same colors that we just had when I built it earlier, like all red, right? Because that's the first color. So this is nice way of testing this. But yeah, there you go. I can just scroll each one. So I can keep scrolling each page as I scroll down. And this is just because I've got an aspect ratio here on around the page view, right? Forget the builder. The builder's just nice to have here. And definitely the placeholder underneath is no longer required. In fact, this builder, we could move this up a level and then remove that builder as well. Yeah.
Truth has a comment here. List views inside a vertical page view.
Yes. So okay, a vertical page. Okay, we can do that right now. So we go vertical page. Look, There you go. Page view. And so it's a vertical page view, did it say?
Yeah.
So we actually have a scroll direction, if I remember rightly. Yeah, axis dot. So this makes a vertical page view. And then you want a vertical page view with horizontal lists. Is that it? So yeah, to make this a list view with axis, same thing in here, axis dot. Oh, goodness me. Dot horizontal. There you go.
There you go.
And restart. What did I break? See? No?
Uh-oh. Where'd they
No.
go?
Is it there? It's there. Oh, you know why? Hang a minute. Hang on 1 minute. Our aspect ratio. Let's just set something up here. So we're saying it's a vertical page view. Let's just get rid of this list view for a second. Just validate that we've got that working, right? So placeholder. Okay, there we go. So we can page up and down. This is good. This is what we want. And the list view should expand to fill the page. Should be no problem doing that. And we're certainly not getting a layout issue. So I have a hard time believing that there's any problem in that. So this should.
What happened?
Right. I know. This should be working. Let's do a restart and see if we get any layout errors. I think you've just revealed. I feel like you've just found a bug in Flutter, honestly.
What did DevTools show? What did DevTools show for the layout?
Let's have a look.
I think we have technologies that can tell us these things.
I mean, page view.
That's weird.
I mean, it's saying that the size box fits the entire thing. It's saying that the list view fits the entire thing. Is it? Oh, no. It's my bad. I changed this to a decorated box, right? Do you know what I didn't do? Let's give this a width of 300. I think this is the bug. This is my fault. Oh, not that one. Yeah. My bad. I changed it and I didn't. There we go. So there you go. So there's your horizontal list. And I can still page it and scroll through. So page.
Mike is actually adding something, though. He says he wants vertical page view and vertical lists.
Don't do this. No. Bad Mike.
He's saying Turth wants that.
So yeah, you don't put scrolling content in scrolling content. However, you can do this better, and this is where we're going to get to our next topic, which is going to be inherited widget as well. So here's where we go. So what we're going to do, we're going to start the Wow Shopping app. So this actually covers both the inherited widget piece for wrap, as well as a bit more about scrolling. So basically, that problem you just saw about vertical inside vertical, you can solve that. Okay, you can definitely solve that, and you can solve it without doing some weird scrolling inside scrolling thing. Okay, the way you do this is with that new widgets, the sliver max. What's it called? Cross access group. Oh my goodness me. I've lost it already.
Let's just rewind the show. It's in the show notes somewhere.
Sliver main axis group. That's the one. And cross access group. Let's bring this up whilst we're waiting. There we go. There you go. has multiple slivers in a linear around the main axis or one another. So the cross axis is, so if you're scrolling in the vertical, that's the main axis. If you're scrolling in the horizontal, that's the main axis. The cross axis is always the inverse of that, right? Okay, so on the point that Mike was trying to make there with the scrolling inside scrolling, what you don't do is you don't put lists inside other lists. Even if you do this, you can do it, but you have to have a fixed height. But then when you scroll with your finger, it's really hard to scroll the thing on the outside unless you give it more padding. And then where do you scroll? And then you have to make sure they're carrying over scroll correctly. Otherwise, you know, let's just do this. There we go. Right. If you don't carry the like over scroll correctly, then you get to the bottom one list and you can't get out of it to scroll the list around that. Like that's why you don't put vertical lists inside vertical lists or vice, the same direction, because it's just a pain. And you can get into problems. However, in fact, on this home screen, we're actually doing that right here. So the top selling items is actually a vertical list of items, and that vertical list is inside another vertical list, which is the page. And that is done using sliver main access group. So if we go look at this on here, this is how you essentially fix. This is why these things are great, right? So you'll notice here we've got sliver top selling. So this top of the page here, right? This is the top of the page. Here's our top nav bar, which is that top bit at the top. Then we have an expanded, which has our custom scroll view, which is this content below. And inside that, here's our promo carousel here, and we have a sliver top selling. We can now say that this sliver top selling can now return back, and in fact it does here, a sliver main access group, which has more slivers inside it. These slivers are actually now embedded into that top main scroll view. This way that you can scroll within scrollables, and it recycles. So this is not probably a great example of this, but we're just going to do this. We're going to say, let's see if I can do this. This should work, right? We'll find out. Let's do a hot restart. So hopefully what we've just done here is just duplicate up the top items. So now when I scroll, he says, that should work. Shouldn't it? I seem to remember that should work. That's a shame. That'd be really helpful. Let's do this. Maybe I feel like the plus worked. I know, let's do this instead. See if that makes any difference. Let's do a hot restart. Oh, you know why?
Why?
The number, I wonder if initial data, so it tries to fetch them, and that doesn't return back the same day. There we go. There's the problem. All right, undo. Let's do this again slightly differently. So there's an example here of the current ones that you have in the cache versus. Go watch the videos. Anyway, so this should solve it.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to our actual content. Here we go. So now you'll see that we got lots of content. All this scrolling is within the main access group, right? If I was to the main sort of list. Now, if I was to put carousel, another set of carousels here. In fact, there's a good example here. The sliver to box adapter is a great example of where this falls down and fails right now, because this has to, each of these items is being recycled, but being recycled in its own list, right? Anyway, let's just copy this multiple times here, just briefly, to show you this working. So now let's reduce down the number of products a little bit here, so we don't have so much scrolling. That'll do for an example. Will that reload? It's just a hot restart. All right, so now if I scroll, here you'll see two sets of lists, another one, and all of these are being recycled nicely within the main list, right? They're all being slivers. They can be, as complex or as busy as we want, and that will just be fine. So anyway, this is how you're supposed to deal with the vertical scrolling issue of scrolling inside scrolling. You put the content in the actual list that you're trying to scroll. You don't have a separate scrolling thing. Now you can actually do this really cool thing with slivers where you actually do scroll within a portion of the screen and it locks, and there's a bunch of other wacky things, but that's where slivers come in and why slivers have a different rendering protocol than RenderBox to solve these different layout problems. All right, back to what we're talking about. Sorry. So Rap's been waiting so patiently. I feel really bad right now. First question of the show, the last question of the show, right? All right. So what can we do here? So we need, actually, you know what? We do talk about expansion. Let me expand. So here is actually using inherited widget, inherited model. So this is our sliver expansion list. Let me see if I can find sliver expansion tile. So this is something, so you click and you expand. And if you notice, these objects on the inside, these are actually more lists of objects, but they use the sliver group again to put them in the parent. But we need them to expand and contract, not within the parent, right? So here we have a sliver main axis group with the header and the content. This has a sliver builder, and the content here actually builds after animation into a, where is it? Further down. I did some really, render proxy sliver. And this just wraps the child sliver in this case. There's some weird and wacky stuff. I won't go into it. It's actually in here. This was, where is it? Sliver builder. It returns the sliver, yeah. So that child sliver that it returns in the content, in the case of this category page, if we go find the categories page, you'll find that each one of the groups, sliver category groups that you're seeing on the left here, actually the content, where is it, is a sliver group, sliver padding with a sliver grid inside with a builder delegate. And it works just fine. It's all in one list, right? And each of these objects will recycle independently, right? Because of the whole sliver thing. They'll recycle really nicely. So if we had like 20, there you go. That will just recycle nicely on the screen, even if you expand them. All of this is in the WoW Shopping app, open sourcing, see it for free. Go have fun. Right. But yeah, the way that the expansion tile stuff works is within inherited model, because you need to be able to scroll back up and still have them expanded, right? So it needs to maintain the expansion state of each of the sections and properly handle that. And that's what we use. So here we got this tile host. So expansion tile host basically holds the state of which items are expanded or not. And so that's why it has this initially expanded. And if we look at this, here's the sections that's running by. And this inherited sliver expansion tile widget, is this big enough for everyone? Hopefully it is. I can actually, let me make it bigger. I don't know if that's helpful for anyone. The sliver expansion tile is just inherited model on type string. And this is where we've got our static method below where we want to get that aspect. And then this is where we update based on the aspect. So this is saying basically, did any of the sections change? Then we should notify all of them. Or did a specific section change? And that's where we're saying here is, does the current section contains all the required dependencies this widget is looking for? And these are the ones that the widget has registered, a specific widget. So each one of these, for example, each one of these sections registers itself using this up here, inherited from. So this is a static method that they call for their specific section. And it registers that widget, that context against that section string, in this case. Then that later on, at some point, as soon as this widget is rebuilt with different sections, it will call should notify. If this returns true, then it will then call, then it will be up to each dependent to then essentially say, okay, have any of my specific dependencies that I've registered for aspects, this is, you register a specific aspect. In this case, the terms are really difficult. So like, imagine you've got a model and they've got different fields. Each field could be a different aspect of the model, right? But once the inherited model registers for them, they become the dependencies, right? So they are the same thing though, right? They're just string. In this case, I'm using a string. You can use your own custom model object. It doesn't matter. So in this case, we're just saying that, yeah, does it contain all of them, and does the old widget not contain them? So that means the dependencies have changed, or what's available has changed, in which case I want that one widget to rebuild. So this way, when I tap on something, I'm changing the expanded state. I'll show you how that works in a second. That then causes the sections to change because it's no longer in the set, or it's added to the set. And then that in turn causes the dependents to change, which causes them to expand and collapse. Where are we? So here you'll see that when you tap on, this is the header, the tar header here. When you tap on anywhere on the header, it runs the controller toggle expanded, and all that's doing, if we go to it, is basically adding or removing the section name for that header to or from the expanded sections list. That's it, and calls notify listeners. This is a change notifier, right? And then the controller is what is registered right in here. So it listens to that. And when those sections get updated, it updates its local, the widget updates its local section list to match the ones coming from the controller. And that's when they pass that on to the inherited widget to know if it should change it or not. The point here, if you look, and we'll do a simple example in a minute. The point about this is the fact that the inherited widget is not the top level; it's an internal widget of your system. People try and treat it as the public interface for whatever they're building, and it's not the case. It's internal. It just provides the link between the parent and the dependents. So let's use the test app here. Let's use the test app, and let's go find that. What was it? Inherit me. Let's go run this up. Wrong one. Do we not run it? Oh, maybe not. And then what we'll do is we'll do a basic example. Can anyone think of what we could inherit? What we could do here?
Money.
Yeah, inherit all money.
Right? Yes.
No, I'm trying to think about like what is a good example of inherited widget in this case.
You could build the counter app using an inherited widget, which doesn't sound all that crazy, but it'd be a good comparison with doing the counter app any other way.
Sure. Why not? Let's do that. Okay. So first of all, we're not going to do the full counter app is not like a big deal, but let's just do.
Well, you wanted something simple, and I wanted to not make it take 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Let's do this. So we have body center text count. Let's just put 1 in there for the moment, and then we want a floating action button, and that can be
the FAB.
Is it actually there is a floating action button? I forgot. I remember when the term fab first came out, when it was like the very first, like, what was it? What version of Android was it that fabs were a thing?
I don't know.
Ice cream sandwich, that was it. Anyway, and it was like, oh wow, fab! It sounds so like cool. Like, the next.
Have you seen the supercut of all the times they said FAB in Thunderbirds?
Oh, I have. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's so funny. FAB. FAB.
It reminds me of the what's the Google I/O of this year of the AI clips where what's his name, Sundar, just says AI so many times throughout the entire thing.
Oh yeah.
AI.
Yep. People with too much time on their hands. People that have more time than I do.
Go on.
I'm jealous.
Let's get on this. Right. So this is just what we're just doing here is quick visuals for the counter app theme. And then what we want to do is going to make this bigger. Theme.textile large. Is that really large tile? I thought there was like
it's really it doesn't
large.
seem very large. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh, we're too big. Back it off, man. Back it off.
Yeah, even display
There
small
we
is
go.
quite big. There you go. So there's our counter, right?
Yeah.
So we call this
Yes.
inherited counter. All right. So hey Rap, welcome. Sorry, I just saw you here.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, so now we've got our inherited counter. So what we're gonna do is quickly do this thing where you hit the plus button and it adds it, obviously, right? So here's our state. We have our int counter variable. This is our usual kind of stuff, and then we'll just have a add function which does set state, right, and increments the counter, right? This is your bog standard counter app. Can't get any simpler than this, right? Don't yeah. Sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Oh no. All right, so we should be able to now hit plus. There we go, and we have a counter.
Yay.
Ooh,
We
yay.
can count.
We can
All
count
that work.
things. It's
Yes.
amazing, right?
Yes.
So the
Ship it.
next
Ship it.
ship it. So the next thing that we actually want to do here is we want to lift out our. We want to first of all lift up our counter state. Maybe this is like some app-wide thing that we want to have, right?
Actually,
and then
Rap's got an idea here. Rap has an idea if you want to implement that. No? Yes?
read the data in the grandchild and set the data in the grandchild. Okay, so try to put a child and a grandchild widget. Try and put in a child and grandchild widget. Display the data in home. And then read the data in the grandchild. Set the data. Okay, look, we'll carry on, and then you can tell me if I'm getting close to what you're trying to understand here. These things never as simple as they want. Right. So first of all, we want a something to hold our state. So what we're going to do, I'm going to lift up the state. This is so we make a app widget that is stateful, and this is going to hold on to a new class called a counter model. Just be nice here. And this is where our counter variable will sit by default 0. And we'll have one of those in here. In fact, final counter model. There you go. Now, we want a home. We want a material. We'll put our material app here. Let's bring that out here. Pop it in there. And then that's going to have a home widget. And then this is going to launch app instead. Okay, restart. See how we go. Good, 0. It worked. Right, we restarted. So now we want to basically provide, for want of a better word, this down the tree using like inherited model. So what we normally have is a class. Let's make this bigger. So what we want is a call it inherited counter, shall we? Inherited counter. I think there's actually like I seem to remember I actually had a new inherited widget. So we have an inherited counter. I don't know why it's. Oh wait, did they change it? Yeah, because it's required. I think my template is about out of date by the looks of it. Yeah, definitely. Because is that even a thing anymore? It's not, is it? It's get, isn't it, or something? No, depend on. Wow, that is super duper out of date.
That's a long class. A long method name.
Oh yeah. So, and then so the point here is, okay, so we've made like this blank inherited widget, but when should it notify the children that it's changed? And that's what we're going to do with right now. Let me just take the headphones out. Ooh. I'll put it on speaker. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I hear you.
Perfect. I can hear you now. Yeah. So what we want to do is to know, first of all, we need to get a hold of this inherited counter from further down the tree, right? So we go down to our, in which case what we're going to do is make a grandchild widget, and we'll call this counter display. Let's call this counter display. Yeah. And only thing it's going to do is say counter equals inherited counter of context, right? And then if we take our text, pop that in there, and put counter display where our text was. We made a grandchild widget that this widget, the counted one, because this context is now going to be depending on the inherited widget. Now, obviously, we want to display that counter. Let's put value. Let's do something like this. And we can now bring our theme out. Okay, and let's go up. I'm going to make this value just to kind of help out naming conventions a bit, Val. There's a bunch of ways of doing this. I'm going to do it at a sort of a model level just because it makes more sense. We could just do an integer, but I think it's not a clear example. So that's why I'm putting the model in here. So we'll make it final, and then we'll just do a quick counter model copy with function. And we're basically using the normal premise of immutable objects. So we'll do a copy with int value. All right, so we have a little model class, right? So we have a counter, and then when we go to create a new one, we'll also have a value. We'll pass the value in, and if it's null, we'll use the counter. This is like normal sort of copy with kind of premise, right? All right, so now we've got that. Now we go back down to our display. So counter, okay, can't find value. That's because our inherited counter currently is returning the inherited counter itself. We don't normally want to do that because we don't care for the widget itself. What we actually want to do is return our value that we want to, which is our counter model, right? So we need to have one of those. So let's add a final counter model and make that a required parameter. So this is actually how we get our data into our inherited widget, right? So if you think about this, the inherited widget here doesn't care about the model structure itself. It doesn't care if I have 10 parameters to my inherited widget. It doesn't make any difference to the inherited widget at all. What makes a difference is the should notify function. So where every time this widget gets rebuilt and provided with a different value, it will run this should update function, which then lets you compare the one that's in the current widget to the old one. And if they're different, then you say it should update. So in this case, how is the data different? Now, we've got two ways of doing this. We could just say is counter not equal to old counter, right? Then we're just doing a quality check on the counter model object. Now, since we use copy with, it's going to be a new instance because we don't implement equals, right, or hash code.
That works because it's immutable, right? But if it was mutable, that would not be satisfactory.
Correct. Yeah, because I was going to get that, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm thinking ahead.
It's fine. But this is the reason why immutable and mutable objects really make a difference. We'll show an example of it working, and then we'll come back to it. So here it is, the counter app. Looking at counter. This got renamed in my at some point. Right. So that's an inherited widget. That's as simple as that. Like, it's not the actual widget that does anything. Like, you don't even need the static method in here. You can do that elsewhere. It just literally goes, is my data different? And then it notifies the children and they get rebuilt. Now down here, we're going to get, if this is stateless, it's just going to get its build function called again. So if we print down here and say build display, in fact, if we do build display counter, and what I'm going to do is do something that everyone should be doing on their models.
Describe identity. Wow.
Yes. So this is
It's
quite
a global
important.
function, right? So
It's a
that's
global function, and you should be using it. I tell you now,
Okay.
you've been told. Right.
I'll be forever wrong if I don't use it. I understand now.
You understand your place in the one. Well done.
I do.
Right.
I do.
So I'm going to actually, no, we won't put that on screen. We'll just put the value. Okay. I think we're not ready for testing actually yet. So each time you press the add button, we can actually take our floating action button here, and we're going to make another one out of that. Counter add button, right?
Cool.
And that is going to do the same thing. It's going to go find the counter. So this is the curious thing, right? We'll come back to actually. Let's do this, and then we'll come back to this. So how do we? Right now, we're at the point now where we go. Okay, we want to increment our counter value that is stored not in the inherited widget. This is the key like brain thing that everyone has a problem with, right? That I'm not changing the value in my counter model. I need to change it in my app state. So what I actually need to do is not return the inherited widget is, what's the way of explaining this? The inherited widget just provides the widget down the tree, right? That's all it does. So in this case, what we probably want to do is, this is why inherited widget is kind of adds a bit of complexity to the way that you develop. I think what we want to do is say we'll make a new widget and we'll call it inherited host, because I can't think of a better name for it right now. Okay. So this is a wrapper widget, right? The idea is that it just wraps a widget, and we can provide whatever we want down the tree. In this case, we can now make our inherited counter private, and we can put this in here. So let me pop that in there. Sure. And instead of returning back our stateful, instead of returning back our inherited counter directly, it returns back our host. So we'll just pass that over as host as a parameter to our inherited counter, and we're going to move our counter model. We could obviously have an initial counter value or something like that. I'm just going to move it into our inherited host. This is the thing that's going to host our counter model. Now, there's a lot of different ways of doing this. You can make it generic. This is essentially what a provider does or a bunch of, anyway, I won't go into it, right? All right, so we can make this stateless, back to stateless now. Let's get rid of that complexity from our example. All right, so now back to where we want. Let's wrap our material app in a inherited host. Now, here's the trick. I know I've lost your app. Just give me a second here. Here's the trick. And when I show you this, it will all make sense. Okay, trust me.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Right. So what we're now doing, and when I show you this, it'll make sense. Trust me.
Getting more red, not less. Okay, there we go.
Sorry, I'm just making mistakes here. Oh my gosh. All right. That's fine. There's a couple of ways of approaching this. I'm going to approach this this way, and I'll show you what this is about in a second. State this counter. Okay. I'm just going to make this public just to make my life easier. Right. Okay. Back to our add function. We're going to remove our counter from home. Home becomes stateless. I'll go through the example in just a second once I've made the changes, and then you can see how it comes together. And I want my add function in here. And counter. We don't need set state anymore. Counter. Sorry, we do need set state. Sorry. Counter equals counter dot copy with. It's a bit of a mouthful here, but I'll do value. You can also shortcut this without copy with function. We can just have like an increment function which does the same thing internally. So that was this a farcical kind of example, but I think the premise is still there. All right.
It's a good thing I suggested counter and not do your taxes using inherited states.
All right. So now we're back to this. Hang on. Let's go down to where we were. The final buttons, which are the add and the display, which are the two things we want to act on this thing. They're going to get out in inherited. So they're not going to get an inherited counter now. They're going to get an inherited host .of. And you'll see how this makes sense in a moment. Let's do this. And this is where you'll see the trick come into play. So this is going to be state. So the function for add is going to be state.add, right? Well, because that's our internal function, we can just take that out, pop that there. So there's our add function. And then inside of our display, we can get the actual counter. So
wow.
So now it's bug free. Let's restart and see what happens.
Bug free.
And we'll compile, should I say?
Right. It compiles.
If I restart now, you will see is this lovely identity string. It makes bigger. This is what describe identity has done for us. It gives us a class name, a hash, followed by a few digits of the hash code. This allows us to identify uniquely this object and not a duplicate of this object. So we know it's changed. And then the current value I put in curly braces at the end, which was 0 of our counter. So if I hit plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's rebuilding where it should do. Let me explain this. Let me walk through and explain this. So first of all, the button here is getting that inherited widget, the inherited it's getting it's using the inherited widget to make the dependency between this widget and the inherited counter widget itself. That's not the inherited host, it's the one that's inside the host. Yeah. Because the of is registering a dependent here, not on the host, but on the counter on the inside of the host. Right. Then we're returning back the state of that we provided to our inherited counter. That's why I passed the state over, so we can access the thing that owns it, that can change it. Now, it could be that this, like, has some self-changing mechanism. There's a bunch of other things you do, but you still need to be able to rebuild it. The key here, and the reason why most people mess up with inherited widget is the fact that you need to rebuild the inherited widget to provide the different value. That is what most people do wrong. They're not doing that, right? So anyway, if we now come down to so the way this normally is named and the way this normally works is if I rename the inherited host to inherited counter, right? This becomes almost, where is it? If I come, we'll call this one inherited counter scope, say, or something else. So with a couple of renames, now our inherited counter is actually a stateful widget. It holds the counter model itself, and then you provide the way that it's actually provided down the tree is just with the scope itself, which is the inherited widget. Does that make sense, Rap? I know it's kind of complicated. I mean, I'll give you this code so that you can try it out, but hopefully this kind of like cleans up a bit of an explanation as to the confusion around like how these things work. Hopefully it doesn't make it more complicated. The point here is that the update of the value. Oh, for those that the update of the, so to be clear, the update of the value is separate to the inheritance of the value, right? That's the I think probably I'll stick it in a gist in just a moment, and then you can grab a copy. So the problem is normally that people like get confused with the fact that you need the updating of the value. You need to rebuild the inherited widget. It's not the inherited widget that does the updating, right? So that's why I've linked the two things. So I needed the actions from our state to update things, but I'm bringing I've brought the fact that the inherited counter, there's a slightly different way of doing this. So let me I do actually want to present the other way. I also want to explain why we used an immutable class for counter model. This is immutable. It's always good to mark your immutable widgets with @immutable, so you know. Oh, look, it's already told me I can make this const. Lovely. All right, so let's pop that in a gist for those that want to play along at home and see this. Bear with me. What do we call this? Inherit me. Inherited widget example.
Inherit the long-winded counter.
Q&A. What's today's date? 22nd, 11.
I had to look it up. It's my birthday, and I didn't remember what day it was.
Oh, Randall, you're getting old, man.
Horrible.
Your own birthday. God, dear.
That's just horrible. I had to look at it. I actually looked at my system clock to figure out what day it was.
All right. So in the so you'll find this in the chat. That's a link to the code that we have on screen. So it's good. We got some. I do want to follow up on some points here. So Christian, one of the, as I said, the person who's been helping us with the questions on the back end, he said, "How bad is an idea not to use should rebuild part, and instead wrap variables in a value notifier, value listable builder when you want updates?" It really makes no real difference. The point here is like a value notifier is a direct interface, right? So the list of things that are going to be registered for the change are going to come not from anything to do with the widget tree or anything like that. It comes from It would be the same as like having a stream that you listen to, and when you get the result come back on stream, you just do set state and rebuild the widget, right? There's many ways of doing the same thing, really. There's no difference, right? What actually happened under the hood is that it caches the dependencies. The whole reason for inherited widget and this thing is not about the changes, but about easy ways of getting other widgets from the tree and caching them, right? It just so happens it rebuilds the child widgets when you use them. That's like the side effect, right? When the value changes. So, for example, if you just wanted to provide a cacheable widget essentially down the tree, so each, let me give you an example what I mean by cacheable just briefly, and that is right here, inherited counter of context is actually, this context for counter display is actually registering this inherited widget and stays with it. That is, you have to go look at this function in the framework. It's in the element class. Should we have a look? Hang on, element. Come on. Can we find the implementation? That is the question. Have I looped? No, I haven't looped. That's the interface. Oh, I feel like we're getting close. We're getting close. There it is. So it's not very helpful actually at the moment, but there you go. So inherited elements is null, then returns null. Otherwise, it looks at its list of inherited elements for the current type. That is the cache, right? So this build context has a cache of inherited elements for the types that you specify. So next time it rebuilds, it has the same object. And then the dependent on inherited element is the thing that actually goes through and tries to register the specific if it's not equal to null. I can't remember actually. This doesn't feel like the right thing. There's a way where it populates the cache. I've forgotten where it is. Update inheritance. Parent.inherited element. There's a bunch of things. I can't be bothered going through this. Anyway, the point here is it links up the item here, the child with the parent, and then so it doesn't have to keep traversing the tree every time to go find it. Anyway, so I want to cover briefly the immutability piece, and then what we're going to do is we're going to change this to a mutable object. So let's get rid of that copy with. Let's make this mutable. It's going to tell me there's an error because I marked it as immutable. I'm going to get rid of that. Can't be made constant anymore. So here's our now mutable object. We can edit the value at any point in time, right? Okay.
Woohoo.
So now we can just do counter dot value plus plus, right? Wonderful. One model object, everything else. Let's restart and look at our.
And it won't work.
Let's reload. There we go. So here's our current model, 6C6B2E. I hit plus. Wait, hey a minute. It's not rebuilding. Why is it not rebuilding? I don't know. I'm hitting the plus.
Oh, no.
So, even if we were to have it rebuild, right? So the reason for this is that this equality check, it's the same object. It doesn't change. So what we actually need to do in this case is we could update we do two things here. Let's do a couple of things. One way of dealing with this is to make sure, especially if you have mutable objects, always override your equals and your hash code functions. I actually have a generator in here somewhere, don't I? Somewhere. I can't remember what the hotkeys are.
You could just import equitable.
Oh, goodness me. Huh?
You could import equitable.
No, I'm just going to do this.
Okay.
Because I'm being lazy. This is not the greatest code generation, but it does the job for my example right now. So this is your standard equality check. So it checks to see, are these the identical object? This is what we were talking about earlier. Are they the same instance? Yes, then they're always going to be equal, right? Okay. Is the other one that you're comparing to a counter model? If they are the same runtime type? They're not. That the runtime type accounts for generics and a bunch of other things that may not be specific and just checking this model. Then you've got the actual values inside. Now, if we want to be really stupid about this, we could just do this, right? It wouldn't matter if it's the same instance or another one. Actually, you're saying that we'd have to. This could be a really simple equality check, right? We're saying, is the other model a counter model, and is its value the same as ours? Boom, done, right? The others are like shortcuts. The reason why they're in this order first is because this is the highest likely one and the quickest one to check. And then the hash code is just because there's only one variable inside this, because there's only one value inside, one variable inside this counter model, with the hash codes are the same, right? But there's actually, if you do have multiple ones, don't use XOR. It's not good enough. Instead, use objects dot hash object dot hash. Sorry, that's it. Hash all or hash, and this allows you to essentially hash multiple objects together, so you have value, and we can actually have I don't know, value 2. Let's just add another one just to show you how this works. That's not really helpful, is it? Value 2 equals 2. Whatever, 0. and then we'll have value 2 here. So that is the correct way of doing a hash code, object.hash. And then obviously in here we'd have to say and value 2 equals other.value 2. I've got off a tangent here, but I just kind of want to explain that. So in this case, now that we've done the equals and hash code, down here on the inherited widget, when it rebuilds, so what happens is we hit a plus. Remember, we did plus plus. That does set state. Set state will rebuild this widget, providing the counter to the inherited counter scope. It runs count update should notify, and then it checks to see are the counters the same. Counter then checks the old one to the new one, and we're going to see what happens. I'm going to hot restart because it's. Let's try that again. I have. Oh, this stop. Oh, there you go. My bad. Now restart. Okay, there it is. I hit plus. Guess what? It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Now, why is it not going to work? Are you ready for this, guys? Are you ready for this?
I don't know.
You don't know? Come on, Randall. Come on.
I'm trying to keep up with you. I am. I really am trying.
Right. When we make a comparison between old counter and new counter, what is the problem in this? There's one bug. Remember, the counter is now mutable. It's always the same because we mutate both the same object. Old widget with the same counter model as the new one. So it's never going to be different. Right? Because once we mutate it, it's the old counter that we were given in last time we built the widget is the same object as the new one. So that it's always going to have the same value. It's going to be equal. What we actually need to be doing in this case is comparing the thing that we actually wanted to detect inside the object. Now, this is even worse because, again, guess what? It's the same problem. The value is the same value. It's the same object. If we print off in here, right? This is the problem that people have, right? Just trying to so we can counter value. They're changed in place. Yeah, exactly. Right. They're changed in place. So here, if I put counter value, we'll just put counter, and then we have old widget counter, right? This is what we're talking about. This should hopefully show this to the audience a little bit better. There's a reason why I put the describe identity in there. So we restart. Let's clear this and hit plus. See, they're the same hash code, the same object. So hit plus, it rebuilds. But look, the old one and the new one are the same object. And because the value's modified in place, there's your problem. So the way we do this is we actually don't just need to store the counter model inside. We need to make a copy of the things that we want to check. In this case, value, right? The actual counter value. Now we can compare the local value with the old widget value. So now this is just going to store the counter value itself, right? Because we're caching to make the comparison correctly, we're caching the correct value here. So in doing so, we'll need to let's do a late, just to make my life a little easier. And we'll say value equals counter value, right? So each time we build a new one of these, it's going to complain that my column is short, whatever. Right. Actually, can I do that? Will that still complain? Yeah. All right. Whatever. Anyway, so now what's going to happen is when we rebuild again, so we hit ++, modifies our mutable state internally. We never get a new counter model. It's the same object. It then calls set state, which rebuilds this with that counter object. But this time, when it builds that counter scope widget, it's going to extract out the value, the counter actual value itself, store that in its local state, so that when it does update should notify, old widget will have the old counter value. So let's restart. Run this again. Hit plus. My goodness, it changed to 1, 2,
Wow.
3. Who would have thunk it? And it's interesting. Do you see the way that the hash code has now changed?
That's a different object.
It should do, because the hash code is now calculated from
our
hash of the two things inside. If we remove the hash code, which this is strictly speaking not the correct way to do this, I'm going to remove value 2 because we don't need it. So we still have a mutable state. It's going to complain that we do not got corresponding hash code that matches. So let me explain for those that don't understand. Hash code in sorry. The hash code itself is tested first. If the two numbers are identical, then it runs the equals function, the equals function here, to check if it's correct. Anyway, so now if I do this, what we'll see, I've just got rid of the hash code function just to show this. If I hit the plus button, you see it's the same. It's the same identity, it's the same object, but with a different value inside. And it still rebuilds the UI. Because, and this is the magic, it's all because we cached that value so that when the inherited widget rebuilds, we cache this value. So when the inherited widget rebuilds, we can actually make the right comparison. So this is where, like, you see how simple it was with the immutable object, right? That we're making new instances. We can say that these two things are completely different things now, right? And we can make that determination. This is very important for reactive UIs because it just makes life 100 times easier. Immutable models really makes a difference. It also stops a world of bugs that you can get into. So I will put this. I'll put this in that same gist. I'm going to overwrite the gist so you can get the two versions in the gist itself.
Cool.
Update public gist. There we go. So if you look at the revisions, you should find there's another revision now for this version. And then what we're going to do is, I feel like there's, I don't particularly, this just feels terrible to me. Is there anything else you want? Does that kind of help explain your problem or solution? We could briefly talk inherited model, or we're running up to 3 hours now, aren't we?
Yeah, we're
we're
getting the 4th hour now. Yes.
We're going to call it here. Hopefully that was informative to everyone.
He did have this one comment though that was sort of interesting. Let's see.
If you return to, it'll rebuild. Sure. The problem here, so to be clear, the whole idea of that rebuild is it's more about a transitive rebuild property, right? What I mean by that is, let me just see if I can. Sorry, there we go. So what I'm trying to get here is the fact that returning true on that top level will cause all of the widgets underneath to rebuild, and those widgets might cause more widgets to rebuild. So the whole idea of doing set state and causing rebuilds is to limit the scope of those rebuilds. So what Christian was talking about earlier with like value notifier and using a value listenable builder is exactly that kind of thing. It's this notion of saying, here's this model, here's this data. When it changes, rebuild that part of the UI. And there's a one-to-one relationship there. You're never going to get like the cascades of problems you might get. My code is very much like that. I still don't see where my problem is, but I'll study your example and probably the pointer heap problem. Yeah. So what else did someone say? Yeah, and this is another good point from Mike said earlier, which I didn't get to. Media query. I actually brought this up in my my FlutterCon talk, but media query now uses inherited model for each of the fields on the model. So you should always be using media query.sizeOf instead of media query.of.size. Two separate things. The of top level of listens to the entire model, and then you're extracting the variable. The size of function is saying just give me the size of the model when it changes, and that's an aspect. It really does explain how to use inherited model. Right. I think we've been going long enough. I've certainly been talking for way too long. That helps solve your problem. I'm happy to chat more. Right. I think that's it. I'm glad we still got some viewers, and I hope you found it all interesting. And I guess we'll see you in 64 hours?
165 hours.
165.
No.
3 hours.
Oh, right. No, 168 minus 3 is 165. Yeah, 165.
Oh,
right.
Okay, I'm wrong. Yeah. All right. Damn, I thought it's got one over you.
So, right. I do that calculation every week, so it's real easy for me to work out the numbers.
Right.
And I'm going to go celebrate my birthday today.
Yeah, I was going to say, everyone sing everyone happy birthday to Randall. No, I'm not doing it.
That's copyright strike too.
Yeah, we can't do that. You can sing it all yourselves on the stream. Sure, go for it.
Right.
Anyway,
right, I'm sure it gets
right. Thanks very much, Randall, and thanks everyone, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.
Bye, everybody.